2747, Mr. Mohammed Buya Shangolo of ID number 11693439, and Mr. Mohammed Hussein Ibrahim of ID number 310-53444, and Mr. Idle Farah Bib of ID number 266-20275. Madam Speaker, the families of these missing persons are facing uncertainty as they painstakingly search for the whereabouts of their kin. In addition to this, Madam Speaker, Mr. Osman Yusuf Gore is missing for the last 3 months, and we had already raised this issue on the floor of the House. Madam Speaker, in all the stated cases, the adoptions of the victims are believed to be police officers purporting to cracking down on terror suspects. While we truly support all the efforts to fight terrorism, the recent development raised deep concerns regarding the violation of fundamental rights of suspects by subjecting them to ethnic and religious profiling. Madam Speaker, an arbitrary arrest and possible extrajudicial execution without the due process of the law. The criminal justice system is clear on the manner of arresting and processing suspects. It is concerning that the security agencies are not upholding the principles of due process. Madam Speaker, Mr. Mohammed Abdullahi Hire has subsequently been found last night, his hands tied, eyes blindfolded, and thrown out of a speeding vehicle in area within Garissa town. This clearly, and he has stated, Madam Speaker, to the families that there are existing torture chambers within Garissa where he has had, in one of the rooms he was taken to, people being tortured, and it's unfortunate that Nyaya House chambers of 1980s has now been moved to Garissa constituency. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request a statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Administration of Justice and Internal Security on the following. The circumstances that led to the abduction of the 4 persons from Garissa town and the identity of the abductors. Madam Speaker, and the place where these 4 persons, missing persons are being held. The measures the government has put in place to ensure that the counterterrorism initiatives are carried out in strict compliance with the law. Madam Speaker, it is important to note the President of the country, the His Excellency William Ruto, has stated on numerous occasions that the era of
focusing on the statement, or we are debating the same statement.
Orders, and we want the security team to take it very seriously on these matters. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Yakub, you had wanted to comment on that. I give you 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mine is just to give a support to my brother, Major Deko, member of Township. Madam Speaker, the issue of abduction in Garissa County has become a menace now. It has no meaning. It's becoming more political. For the last 3-4 months, there have been abductions in all over Garissa. We thought those abductions were meant for security purpose, but these particular cases, these 4 cases plus 2 more others, have taken another line, the line of being that it's just aimed at a certain clan. That yesterday, as we speak, there was demonstration in Garissa town based on this issue of 4 abductions, whereby a certain community from a certain section of Garissa County, a clan by the name Audak, are saying that their people are being targeted. We want the intelligence, the security intelligence agency of the government to give us a clear indication on where these abductions are coming from, who is behind it, why is it that as a particular community in Garissa County is targeted, and what is the motive behind this. We are really shocked, we are really perturbed, we are seeing that there's something a hand in political violation on this. We request the government to give us a clear answer, and I support my brother Deko on this. We are pained by the indications of the government. We want to see what is happening in Garissa. Abductions have become a menace.
1 minute
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You had only 1 minute to make a comment. What is out of order, Honorable? I hope that it is not about what the Honorable Yakub said, because he has already finished. So the point of order cannot even stand. Honorable Nyenze. I would like to give a chance to the Honorable Edith Nyenze. She has a statement. Is the Honorable Edith Nyenze in the house? She's out. The Honorable Makali Mulu. The Honorable Makali Mulu, what is out of order?
Madam Speaker, thank you for this opportunity, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you know, I just wanted to say this, Madam Speaker. This matter of Garissa town was raised yesterday by one of the honorable members. Today it is coming out again, Madam Speaker. Would I be in order, Madam Speaker, to request you that you order for some urgent action on this matter? Because people are losing their lives and the others are being put in a situation of panic. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Give a chance to the chairman because he's here to tell us when the statement will be given.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Maybe before I did respond on when we'll bring the statement, as clearly put by the Honorable Member, just yesterday, more or less the same question was asked by Honorable Member nominated from Garissa as well. Honorable Speaker, I want your indulgence, because these questions are more or less the same, talking around the same area. Is it possible to condense both questions, consolidate both statements so that they are brought as one? Because they will be addressing the same problem.
Yes. Thank you very much So first of all, I'll respond on the matter that has been raised by the Honorable Makalimulu, that this matter of Garissa is being raised so many times. I was in the House yesterday when it was raised, and the Chair, Security, has requested that the request be consolidated. So, Chair, let the three matters be consolidated. And instead of just giving the answer to the statements that have been raised, I request that they appear before the committee. And I would like to ask whether the member who has raised a statement, whether is it okay if you appear to the committee so that all these matters can be consolidated, responded to at the same time with all the other members from Garissa?
Well guided, but again, I want to indulge you now, considering that you kind of referring the statements or the questions to be addressed in a more comprehensive manner by the members appearing before the committee, will it be then necessary again to bring a statement to the floor?
Yes. It is necessary. It's a document of the House. They'll appear there and you must report to the House, my friend.
You must report back to the House.
Yes.
The matter that has been raised.
Yes.
Now it is not only a matter of interest to the people of Garissa, it is of interest to this House.
Yes.
So after you have consolidated, gotten a proper response, you will report to the House in the usual way. Thank you. Chair Security.
I think you have directed on the way to go, and much obliged.
Next order.
Assist of the matter.
So a statement by the Leader of Majority Party, the usual Thursday statement. You may proceed, Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, 30th July 2024, to prioritize business for consideration during the week. Honorable Speaker, members may wish to note that the House varied its calendar and is set to proceed on a long recess next week on Friday, 9th August 2024, instead of 16th August 2024. I repeat, Honorable Speaker, the House is set to proceed on a long recess next week on Friday, 9th August 2024, instead of the 16th August 2024. I have, Honorable Speaker, going by the communication that the Deputy Speaker just made this afternoon, we may have 1 day special sitting, maybe if the Leader of Majority finds it fit to approve or to dispense of the business that will be hanging by then. I therefore urge all members and committees to conclude any urgent matters before them and ensure that there is smooth transaction of all priority business in the House before the recess begins. Honorable Speaker, with regards to the business for Tuesday next week, the House is expected to consider the following bills at various stages, some of which are listed in today's order paper. Number one, the first reading of the Livestock Bill 2024. Number two, the second reading of the Division of the Revenue Bill. Second reading of the Coffee Bill, the Senate Bill number 10 of 2023. And the Equalization Fund Administration Bill, Senate Bill number 14 of 2023. Additionally, Honorable Speaker, the debate will also be undertaken on the following motions, should they not be concluded today. One, the report on consideration of nominees to 4 National Government Constituencies Development Fund committees, report on consideration of the audited accounts of specified state corporations, report on enhancing reporting of parliamentary business on online platforms. Number 4, report on the consideration of the inspection visit to the semi-autonomous institutions of the East African Community in Uganda, report on the implementation of status of reports on petitions and resolutions passed by this House, report on the alleged unfair trade practices by foreign investors in Kenya, second report on employment, diversity, audit in public institutions, report on consideration of a public petition on funds spent contrary to the provision of Article 223 of the Constitution of Kenya, and the report of the extraordinary session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament, Honorable Speaker. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will again reconvene, and I think it's at this point the discussion on the special sitting will be laid on the 6th of August of 2024. That is when the House Business Committee again will reconvene to schedule the business for the rest of that week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House, Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Report of the Committee of the Whole House on the consideration of the Senate amendments to the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2022. Question to be put.
So debate on this motion was concluded yesterday. Honorable members, I now put the question that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the Senate amendments to the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2022. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion. Reports of the Auditor General on the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 9 constituencies in Bungoma County. Question to be put.
Honorable members, I put the question that this House adopts the report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee on its consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Constituencies Development Fund for the 9 constituencies in Bungoma County for financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, 2015-2016, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 7th March 2024. Will as many as of this opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, special motion. Consideration of nominee for appointment as the Director General for Health.
Chairman, Health Committee, the Honorable Dr. Pukose.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that, taking into consideration the findings of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Health and the Senate Standing Committee on Health in its report on the vetting of a nominee for appointment as the Director General for Health, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 31st July 2024, and pursuant to Section 16.2 of the Health Act 2017 and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth as the Director General for Health. Madam Speaker, the Public Service Commission advertised for the position of Director General for Health on 18th March 2024 in print media and in the Public Service website. A total of 118 applicants were received at the close of the advert on 9th April 2024, and out of which 9 candidates were shortlisted for the position on 4th June 2024. On 12th and 13th June 2024, the Commission conducted interviews of the shortlisted candidates. Out of the 9 candidates shortlisted, 1 declined to be interviewed, while 1 candidate was not interviewed since she did not produce original academic and professional certificates. The remaining 7 candidates were interviewed and ranked in order of merit, where Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth, EPS, was ranked the highest. Consequently, the then held CS Honorable Susan Nakumicha forwarded the name of Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth, EPS, for approval by Parliament as the Director General for Health in accordance with Section 16.2 of the Health Act, Cap 241. Honorable Speaker, the Speaker of the National Assembly filed a communication made on 26 June 2024, and the Honorable Speaker of the Senate filed a communication made on 2nd July 2024, conveyed to the National Assembly and the Senate respective committees. The message from the Cabinet Secretary. The speakers then referred to the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Health and the Senate Standing Committee on Health, respectively. In accordance with Section 6.9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, Cap 7F, the Clerk of the National Assembly and the Clerk of the Senate invited interested members of the public to submit any representation by written statements on oath as affidavits with supporting evidence on the suitability of the nominee for appointment to the position of Director General for Health. The committee conducted its approval hearings on Thursday, 26 July 2024. In conducting the approval hearing, the committees were guided by the provisions of the Constitution, the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act, Cap 7F, the Leadership and Integrity Act, Cap 185C, the Public Officer Ethics Act, Cap 185B, the Public Service Commission Act, Cap 185, the Health Act, Cap 241, the National Assembly Standing Orders, and the Senate Standing Orders. Following committee deliberations and analysis of the submissions and representations received on the suitability of the nominee for appointment to the position of Director General for Health, the committees observed that Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth, EPS, demonstrated the requisite knowledge and experience to perform the functions of the Director General for Health, having satisfactorily performed in an acting capacity for 4 years. He further met all statutory and constitutional requirements to perform the functions of the Office of the Director General. The committee observed further that the issues raised in the memorandum which had been received was satisfactorily responded by the nominee. We were even able to invite one of the one of the petitioners, Dr. Wahome Ngare, who appeared before the committee and made his submissions. Honorable Speaker, the committees having considered the supportability competence of the nominee, Dr. Amoth, following the approval process and taking into account these observations and findings, and pursuant the provisions of the Constitution, Sections 3, 5, 8, and 2 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, Cap 7F, the Health Act, Cap 241, the National Assembly Standing Orders, and the Senate Standing Orders, recommended that Parliament approves a nomination of Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth, EPS, for appointment as the Director General for Health under Section 16 of the Health Act, Cap 241. Honorable Speaker, I want first to thank both the senators and the National Assembly members of Parliament who were able to spend their time and be able to approve the nominee through when we sat in all our sittings. I want to also appreciate the Secretariat for having facilitated the hearings. Honorable Speaker, I now want to beg that this House approves the appointment of Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth, EPS, for appointment as the Director General, and beg to move this motion and urge the House to adopt the report. And now ask my deputy, Honorable Patrick Munene Ndwiga, the member for Chuka Ikambangombe, to second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I stand here to second my able chairman on the appointment of Dr. Amoth as the Director General for Health. Chair, I want to say that, one, I've known Dr. Amoth for quite a while now. Last Parliament, I had the benefit of serving in the Health Committee for like 3 years. And Dr. Amoth was still the Director General. He is one man who has been very patient. He has acted for the longest. And Chair, I want to tell this House today and the country that finally this country has a man in the name of Dr. Amoth who will lead the Ministry of Health as a Director Health that guide the Minister very well. Chair, I've known Dr. Amoth for quite a while. He has the experience, he has the knowledge, and also the passion for the Ministry of Health. Chair, this is one person whose networks in the health across the world can really be a benefit to this country. Chair, this is one person who commands respect, who commands a lot of authority in the Ministry of Health. So, Chair, what I would urge Dr. Amoth, as he comes now as a substantive Director for Medical Services, is to guide the new CS if she goes through, because she will need a lot of guidance in that ministry. And Dr. Amoth is one man who understands the Ministry of Health in-out, Chair. Chair, I stand to support and second my chair. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair and Vice Chair. Honorable members, I propose the question that, taking into consideration the findings of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Health and the Senate Standing Committee on Health in its report on the vetting of a nominee for appointment as the Director General for Health, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 31st July 2024, and pursuant to Section 16(2) of the Health Act 2017 and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth as the Director General for Health. I'll give the first opportunity to the Honorable Samuel Atandi, member for Alego Usonga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me join the chair of the committee in supporting the motion of the appointment of Dr. Patrick Omonda Amoth to the position of Director General Health. Madam Speaker, let me declare that this is somebody I've known for many years because he's a member of my constituency, and I've known him as a long-serving civil servant from the days he left university. Madam Speaker, Dr. Amoth was at one time in charge of Kiambu District Hospital, those days before revolution. Madam Speaker, those days we used to take our patients to Kiambu District Hospital because of the way in which he had transformed that hospital and made it an excellent center in that region. Madam Speaker, you know that there was a COVID pandemic in the year 2020. Madam Speaker, the person who was in charge of giving the government technical advice on matters COVID was Dr. Amoth. Madam Speaker, Dr. Amoth performed so well that Kenyans were demanding for him to be confirmed as Director General of Health. But, Madam Speaker, that did not happen. Madam Speaker, Dr. Amoth was thereafter elected the Vice President of the Executive Committee of the World Health Organization, a position he served for about 3 years, and still, Madam Speaker, Dr. Amoth was still acting. Madam Speaker, I'm saying this because, Madam Speaker, I was involved in lobbying for Dr. Amoth to be confirmed into this position during the former regime. Madam Speaker, I met the former Minister for Health severally, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe, to persuade him to confirm Dr. Amoth into this position. Madam Speaker, at that time, Kenyans were demanding for Dr. Amoth to be confirmed. But, Madam Speaker, the answer that I got from Mr. Kagwe is something that will surprise you. Mr. Kagwe told me that Dr. Amoth was too old to occupy this position. Madam Speaker, you're not listening. I wish Madam Speaker was listening. Madam Speaker,
What is out of order? I see several points of order. Is there anything out of order? No, there's nothing out of order.
Yes.
Proceed.
Madam Speaker, I'm making my contribution. I want you to listen. Madam Speaker, Mr. Mutahi Kagwe told me that according to him, the
What is
person who
out
was
of order?
suitable.
I have a point of order by the Honorable Madenge, member for Nyeri Town. Please proceed.
Madam Speaker,
What is out of order?
is it in order for the Honorable Atandi to mention the Honorable Mutahi Kagwe in this house while he's not here to defend himself? It is out of order, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, the Honorable
Actually, there's nothing out of order to mention a former cabinet secretary. However, the part where you are talking about lobbying, please stick to the facts and continue with debate.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, what I'm trying to say, Madam Speaker, is that I was responding to the concerns of my constituency, who continue to ask me why Dr. Amoth was acting, yet at that time, Madam Speaker, we were cooperating with the Jubilee government. Madam Speaker, at that time we were cooperating, and my constituents were concerned that how come this cooperation was not giving their constituents the confirmation that was necessary. And that is the reason why, Madam Speaker, I went to talk to the minister. Madam Speaker, you realize that towards the tail end of the last regime, we were part of government somehow. So, Madam Speaker, the answer that I got, that Dr. Amoth was not fit to occupy this position because on account of his age, is something that startled me. And I wanted to tell the Mutahi Kagwe, because I know he's listening, that this is something that he should have done earlier. And that the report which has been submitted by the committee here has confirmed that Dr. Amoth, indeed Dr. Amoth was fit then, was qualified then, as he is qualified today to occupy this position. That's the message I'm trying to pass on. Madam Speaker, there's something which this House needs to note, that in this country, and I want to repeat, in this country, there are some people who are people in civil service who get bypassed for certain positions because, on account of their tribe. And this is the fate that has befallen Dr. Amoth over the years. Dr. Amoth should have held this position 4 years ago, if not for the fact that he was regarded as a person from a particular region. And this is the message I want to pass. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Kenya Kwanza government. Madam Speaker, Kenya Kwanza government has confounded us in many ways, because there are some things that they have done which many people do not think they would have done. And one of the things that they have done, Madam Speaker, is to make Dr. Amoth, to give Dr. Amoth this confirmation. I was thinking, Madam Speaker, that during the former regime, this was a position that we should have held that time. But I want to thank the Kenya Kwanza regime because this is something that they have done, which I'm pleased about. They are disregarding ethnic orientation of individuals in civil service, and they are giving them appointment and position. This is something which I must appreciate. Madam Speaker, I also must appreciate the fact that something like this is good for the unity of the country. Because, Madam Speaker, even the very civil servants in those offices now have the motivation to work very hard because they know that on merit you can be able to get to senior positions in government. Madam Speaker, as I conclude to give other people an opportunity to speak, I want to say that I am convinced that with this appointment, the health sector in this country is going to be transformed. Because now you are giving Dr. Amoth the instruments he needs to be able to make decisions that are going to help the sector. I want to urge him that using his position, let him ensure that the issues to do with doctors and the nurses and the clinical officers are resolved so that Kenyans begin to enjoy better quality health services. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
Thank you. The Honorable Osoro, Majority Whip.
Honorable Speaker, point of correction is a majority whip, it's not deputy. But thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also rise to support the report by the chairman, the Health Committee, Honorable Speaker, for one and two reasons. Number one, Honorable Speaker, this Patrick, the Honorable, or the Mr. Patrick Amoth, or Dr. Patrick Amoth, I'm being corrected, it's Dr. Professor EGH Patrick Amoth, Honorable Speaker, stood out in the year 2010 when we had a crisis. As they say, leaders are noticed or identified during the time of crisis, Honorable Speaker. In 2010, Honorable Speaker, 2020, the year was faced with a pandemic of the COVID-19. And at that point, the country, 2020, and at that point, Honorable Speaker, Kenyans needed a person or people that would come out in defense in their own, to protect their interests and to protect their lives and to speak out on the pandemic and also fight, help them fight what they were going through then, Honorable Speaker. At that point, Honorable Speaker, the gentleman by the name Dr. Patrick Amoth was all over the media, Honorable Speaker, speaking, campaigning against the COVID-19, guiding people on how they should live and operate at that point, Honorable Speaker. But the most unfortunate thing, that even amidst the challenges that we were facing, even as he fought to help the people, to help the country come out strong against that pandemic, he was still acting, Honorable Speaker. He was not a substantive CEO. He was still acting in the acting capacity, Honorable Speaker. Many Kenyans were wondering, how would a person who is as qualified as him act for all those years, Honorable Speaker? I do not know why it has taken 6 years for people to realize that this is a person that needed to be substantive on the first instance. There are so many things that happen when people act, Honorable Speaker. There are so many things that disadvantage those people that are in active position because there is usually a low pace of motion because at any given time when you want to make decisions, because you're acting, sometimes you're threatened and blackmailed and told you cannot do this. Otherwise, if you do this, you will go out. We will have you out of this active position and will not confirm you, Honorable Speaker. So I believe if Dr. Patrick, going by what Dr. Patrick did for this country in the acting capacity, clearly he must have just exhumed just 60% of his strength and his capacity. If you now confirm him fully, you will see what Dr. Patrick Amoth will do for this country. And that is why, Honorable Speaker, we are here, all members of parliament from both sides of the aisle, all pushing for the confirmation of this great son of the soil, this great doctor, this great public servant in the name of Dr. Patrick. I think we need not to waste a lot of time. The gentleman should be in office, act, and in rewarding him for the services that he's done. If there is a provision in law that will seek his confirmation for another term, this is the gentleman that deserves that particular seat again and again and again to reward him.
Order, order, Honorable Gogo. Honorable Gogo. Honorable Gogo, I know the excitement. We'll get to where you are. So please let the Honorable Osoro be heard in silence. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Dr. Lillian Gogo is my mother-in-law. I do not want to, in fact, for that reason, Honorable Speaker, let me just say I support. She's actually cheering the son-in-law, and I don't think she's, I don't know why. Please, Honorable Speaker, protect me from,
Order.
Protect me from Bishop. Protect me from Bishop, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Osoro, continue with your debate. Let the Honorable Osoro finalize his debate.
Thank
the
you.
Honorable Kirema, please, let's be orderly. I know that you are listed to speak. You are going to get your chance. Please
Thank you.
finalize your debate.
As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, I think it's about time also we get a list of all those officers that are acting, that are in acting capacity. We push if there is something that this House can do so that those people who've really saved this country, those people who've really given their all in this country, but in acting capacity, get a way to be confirmed, Honorable Speaker. And for that reason, I support the report. May Dr. Patrick Amoth get to office and serve the Kenyans, and we promise him our support, and we promise that, again, if it requires an extra input from this very House, Honorable Speaker, this House will be ready to support him for what he's done for this country. I tell him congratulations, and I support the report. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Nabi Nabwera. The Honorable Nabwera Nabi, member for Lugari.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the report by the departmental committee as presented by the chair that Dr. Amoth be given the job. Madam Speaker, we all know that if there is a person in this country who has suffered injustice, professional injustice, is Dr. Amoth, acting for over 5 years, and when he's duly qualified. We also know Dr. Amoth managed the situation very well during the time of COVID. He helped the ministry and helped the country surmount the COVID attack. Madam Speaker, for the time between 2019 and 2022, when management of malaria was placed under Dr. Amoth, he did a commendable job and reduced it by 29%. A person of that stature must be given an opportunity to serve this country. Madam Speaker, I want to raise and support the motion to give Dr. Amoth the job as Director General. Thank you.
The Honorable Cheng. The Honorable Cheng. The Honorable Cheng, please proceed. Very kindly pass the mic to the Honorable Cheng, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to wholeheartedly support this particular nomination. Honorable Speaker, if you are looking for competence, you are looking for erudity, you are looking for integrity, Madam Speaker, if you are looking for patience, comportment, composure, Madam Speaker, this gentleman, this doctor has shown that you can serve in any opportunity, that you can serve with dignity without making noise. Madam Speaker, Honorable Amoth has been where he has been for all these years. And no, I've not had any single Luo. I've not had anybody from CIA claiming that he's being targeted. I've not had any Luo saying that he's not being promoted because of tribalism, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this gentleman has acted in his capacity with grace and humility. We've never heard him say that he's being passed for promotion because he's Luo, Madam Speaker. He did his job because he's a professional, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, during the COVID period, when Amoth spoke, Madam Speaker, the country calmed down. When Amoth told us what's going to happen about COVID, when he spoke about the numbers, Madam Speaker, the country calmed because he was a voice of reason, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if there's anybody who has held the ministry
Honorable
on
members,
his hands, on his palms.
Order, Honorable Cheng. Honorable members, please lower your consultations. It's too loud. Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, if there's anybody who has stabilized the ministry in terms of turmoil, Madam Speaker, we've seen Amoth going out when there were strikes, not now, not last year, not the other year. And he's spoken to his colleagues in the profession with grace and humility, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the President, and I want to thank the both houses, Senate and National Assembly, for doing a good job. Madam Speaker, I wish that future nominations, I wish that nominations for offices were to follow this particular methodology, Madam Speaker. I know that there's no Kenyan today who would come and say that Amoth is not qualified. I don't think there's any Kenyan who would come and say that Amoth is corrupt or that he's not competent, Madam Speaker. And so, as I stand here today to support this nomination, I want to hope that the Dr. Amoth will continue doing what he does this time round with renewed confidence, this time round with renewed agility, this time round with renewed resolve to ensure that the ministry that he's going to be the DG in is more stable. We don't want to see more strikes. We don't want to see, Madam Speaker, issues as we go to implementing the social health scheme. We don't want to see issues of teething problems because now we have a gentleman there who knows what he needs to do and who now has the power and the capacity to execute the job. Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Lillian Gogo, member for Angwe.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the presentation by the Honorable Chair for Health on the proposed appointment and occupation of office by one and our very own son of Kenya, Dr. Patrick Amoth. When I go, Honorable Speaker, to the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, Honorable Speaker, the first item that comes here is that the Dr. Amoth has been acting. That he's been acting, which spoils his clean bio as a son of Nyanza. Sons of Nyanza don't act. They work. They produce, they project. Sons of Nyanza, Honorable Speaker, these are people who have deliverables. So whoever has been putting Dr. Amoth to act for 5 years, like for 5 years, Honorable Speaker, like for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years for a son of Kenya to be in an acting capacity, somebody who has risen through the ranks from a medical officer and a graduate of our very own University of Nairobi is being made to act for 5 years, Honorable Speaker. What is wrong with Kenya? And why do we make our very own people act? I have never seen a foreigner come to Kenya and act. Why are we making Kenyans act, Honorable Speaker? They are acting like what? Why are they made to act? Why are these people making Kenyans to act? Honorable Speaker, you can remember. Our CEO of NGCDF acted for 6 years. What is wrong with these people? And why the malice and the evil? 13 years. It is heartbreaking. And it is an example that we don't want to show the young people. And it is in the same hardness of the eyes that some people prevent others from ascending to certain offices, that they are also preventing young people from getting into certain offices. And this must be stopped by law. This must be stopped by good morals. And as I read further, Dr. Amoth has even worked in Kiambu. Dr. Amoth has acted in United? Point of information, yes, Honorable Millie. And I also want to congratulate you as a woman on being nominated to be our minority whip. Women are moving places. Women are moving places, Honorable Speaker.
Order, member for Rangwe. What is out of order, Honorable Millie Odhiambo? Is it a point of order, Honorable Millie?
Madam Speaker, it was actually a point of information, not a point of order.
I'm obliged to ask the Honorable Lillian Gogo whether she would like to be informed by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo.
She has agreed.
All right, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have actually just been reminded by Honorable Nabi Nabwera here that I should inform my sister that there are women who have been acting all their lives as wives. And this must also be changed with immediate effect. Women cannot act as wives for their lives, for their entire life.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Millie.
Honorable members.
Thank you. I thank you,
the
my
member
sister,
for
because
Rangwe, you are duly informed. So please proceed. I hope you are finalizing now.
I thank you, Honorable Millie, because I knew you were going to give me serious information. It is on the same breath that they make women act. You have substantive wives and you also have acting wives. So they must also stop and make credible, substantive, loyal, and recognizable wives. I hope that information helps you other than me. And we need to be confirmed. We need all the women in this country to be confirmed as wives, not as acting wives. And my particular material, Honorable Speaker, was on the person of Dr. Patrick Amoth. Apart from getting his undergraduate degree course, this is a renowned obstetrician and gynecologist. And I stand here as a woman to support somebody who takes his life to make women health his own agenda. If I don't support Dr. Amoth for anything else, he has specialized in the women agenda in his medical education. So as I support him as part of the parliamentary group and as a member of Rangwe constituency, I want to urge Dr. Amoth that when he takes up office, he should come up with more serious problems to address the agenda of cancer, breast cancer amongst women. He should address the agenda of many gynecological stigma that women face, including leakage of their urinary system after delivery, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, how I pray that even in our education system, we do not allow our teachers to keep acting. You find, Honorable Speaker, that teachers who act as deputy principals, they are kept in acting capacity until they give up. Once somebody has been put as a deputy school principal, they should be confirmed so that they are encouraged to work, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you realize that there is normally a go at suppressing certain excellent people, especially if they are excellent academically. I want to urge this nation, Honorable Speaker, and I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that Kenya must now be one. Kenya must be united. Nobody is going to be made to act against the labor laws. I thank you for giving me that chance, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kindiki Mugambi, member for Buri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to support the report of the Committee of Health on the appointment of Dr. Amoth as the Director General of Health Services. Madam Speaker, this is a professional personality. We really would like to sympathize with him for having been meant to act for so many months. But that now is gone. We are looking forward for Dr. Amoth to take up the responsibility because we are having a lot of challenges in the department, in the Ministry of Health. Madam Speaker, I support Dr. Amoth because during the time of COVID, he risked his life. He kept Kenyan informed every hour, 24/7, for almost like a year. Madam Speaker, we are looking for dedicated persons to render services to the Kenyans. Dr. Amoth is not only a son of Nyanza, he is a son of Kenya. And that's what we need to be preaching here. What we need to be talking about here is not how many years he has acted. What we want to hear is how many months, how many years is Dr. Amoth going to be given so that he can continue giving services to this country. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Health requires a lot of rejuvenation. Mr. Speaker, health is one of the key pillars of the government of Kenya. His Excellency the President is very much concerned with the performance of the ministry. Madam Speaker, I am supporting Dr. Amoth because I know when it comes to the universal health services, which the government is trying to do, Dr. Amoth is going to be a key pillar in ensuring the success of the universal health care. Madam Speaker, we should not politicize this. This is a serious gentleman. He has traveled everywhere. I know this gentleman personally. I know he's a man of integrity, and that's what we are looking for. With those few remarks, I support Dr. Amoth to be confirmed as the Director General of Health.
Thank you. The Honorable Faramalim.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I have known Dr. Amoth for many, many years.
Order, Honorable Gavani wa Mushomba. If you have a point of order, you need to just press the intervention button instead of shouting. So let us continue with the Honorable Faramalim.
Madam Speaker, I have known Dr. Amoth for many, many years. I have many members of my family who are in the medical field, who are doctors. And I've known him as a very, very dedicated and able doctor and a manager of the health sector manager. Madam Speaker, when you give somebody a position on account of meritocracy, purely the merits, this country will go far. The problem is that every time, Madam Speaker, the problem in our country is that we don't give the right job to the right man or woman. And it's because of that that we are not performing as a country as optimally as we would wish. I don't want to belabor the point. His professor who taught him is in this house now, Professor Jaldesa. And those of us who have known him
Order,
as...
Honorable Faramalim. What is the name of that, the Honorable member who just crossed the floor from where Honorable Esther Passaris is, crossed to the other side? Michael, I know him. So please just do the necessary.
Madam Speaker,
Please proceed.
I do not want to belabor too much. The record of this doctor speaks for itself. This House is going to approve him unanimously, and I'm sure he's going to do a very good job. And I think because we have exhausted, we have a lot of members of parliament. Nobody, not a single member of parliament has had any reservations about Dr. Amoth because his own record speaks for itself. And we are very happy, and I'm also happy that we will have the health sector in the hands of an able Kenyan. So, Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support Dr. Amoth's nomination on this, and I call on the members now to also support him once he takes up the position, because there's need for political will, goodwill, for him to perform optimally in that position. And on my part, I can promise him we'll give him all the support he needs. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rest my case.
The Honorable Meli, member for Tinderet constituency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the report by the Committee on Health. Madam Speaker, Patrick Amoth has actually shown that he served with integrity, with dignity, and commitment to work. In fact, during the COVID-19 period, he actually showed that he was able to give a lot of technical advice, more so on medical issues, and therefore he averted a crisis, especially in this country, and more so his knowledge on health actually assisted during that particular time. Madam Speaker, the Chair Health Committee actually has given us a very detailed report about the education background, the work Dr. Amoth has done in government. And one of the things that is coming out very clearly is that Dr. Amoth is a very committed civil servant. He's a man who actually loves his work. He is one person who has done his work very well. And this is something that other civil servants and other people who have been appointed in government should emulate and make sure that wherever one is appointed, he should serve with integrity, with dignity, and passion to assist the people of this country. The offices that we hold, Madam Speaker, are not meant for us. They are meant to serve the people. They are meant to ensure that we deliver on services. We make sure that if the drugs are needed, if there is an intervention in a particular area, the officers in charge should intervene and make sure that they serve people. This House has, in this House, we have been able to have discussed many government officers. Very soon we shall be discussing about the issue of the IG and many others. It is upon members that we need to ask that the officers appointed serve the people of this country with all dedication, with all the passion, with commitment, and have integrity and fairness, so that we are going to have a nation where services are being provided without any problem. Madam Speaker, I support, and I want to say that we pass this unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Dr. Nyikal, member for Seme.
Now listen to Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the committee report on the appointment of Dr. Amoth. Madam Speaker, Dr. Amoth, when he came before the committee, had passed through the correct processes. We looked at all the processes. They were correctly carried out. And when he was before the Joint Committee of the Senate and the National Assembly in Health, he actually met all the requirements, the integrity requirements from EAC, the issues of Article 6 of the Constitution, public service issues. They met all those. And Madam Speaker, what is most important is the technical competence of Dr. Amoth. People have said here that Dr. Amoth acted his competence, but what validates his competence more than anything else that actually has been an embarrassment to the people of Kenya is that Dr. Amoth was actually appointed the chair of the executive board of World Health Organization. And that is a body where you are actually voted for by directors of health, ministers of health from 50 countries in the world. And they saw it fit to actually appoint Dr. Amoth as their chair. And Madam Speaker, I interacted with Amoth on 2 occasions when we were at the World Health Assembly. And Madam Speaker, the whole world was always looking up to Dr. Amoth. He was chairing many committees. He was being asked to give comments on everything. He was recognized worldwide as a competent health administrator. Mr. Speaker, personally, during the interview, I was satisfied the way he answered the questions, his understanding of the ministry structure. Madam Speaker, I think is perfect. We couldn't get a better person for this job. Definitely, I didn't need any assistance to assess him on his technical competence, and he did actually do a good job. Madam Speaker, there were some issues that came with the memoranda that actually were questioning his issues. And one of them was the issue of clinical officers. And when we listened, it was a policy issue that needed not be raised. The other one, Madam Speaker, was the issue of termination of pregnancies. Once again, when this was brought, and the person who brought the memorandum, when we actually questioned him, is somebody who actually is complaining of all issues of vaccination, all issues of reproductive health. And Madam Speaker, even the issues of vaccines that was brought, actually he answered competent. And how he managed COVID, I think we don't have to say anymore. And Madam Speaker, I support this. And Madam Speaker, I'll tell Dr. Amoth, I think this one he understands, that the biggest challenge in the health sector is actually harmonization of the national policies at the headquarters and the delivery at the county. In terms of human resource, supplies in drugs and non-pharmaceutical, financing, particularly chief, and the issue of UHC. But I'm sure he is up to the job. He will be able to do this and deliver and actually achieve for us UHC if given the opportunity. With that, Madam Speaker, I support his appointment.
The Honorable Professor Guyo Jaldesa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the chance. I want to say that I support the committee report, and which is also my committee. And to put the record straight, I want to say that I examined and passed Dr. Amoth as a postgraduate student at the University of Nairobi. Fortunately, I also vetted him at the committee level. And for that, I want to assure the House that Dr. Amoth is a highly qualified, competent individual ready to serve the country in that capacity. So, without wasting time, but the other thing which I need to state is that Dr. Amoth raised the flag of Kenya by serving as the co-chair of the WHO Executive Committee. So those years of he acted actually made him be fully baked and competent to serve in that capacity. And with that, I support the motion.
Thank you very much. I see many points of order. I see so many points of order. Honorable Jared Okello, what is out of order?
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there seems to be a general consensus that everybody in this House is pro Dr. Amoth without any contestation, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, on that breath, I would ask you to indulge us that the mover be called upon to reply. And I thank you.
I see a lot of support in both sides, on both sides of the aisle, but I'll put this to a vote that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the members for overwhelmingly supporting the committee's position, and I want to thank the Committee of Health of the National Assembly. And Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply that Dr. Patrick Amoth be approved as the Director General for Health. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. So then, honorable members, I'll go ahead. I am going now to put the question that, taking into consideration the findings of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly, Departmental Committee on Health, and the Senate Standing Committee on Health in its report on the vetting of a nominee for appointment as Director General for Health, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 31st July 2024, and pursuant to Section 16(2) of the Health Act 2017 and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011. This House approves the appointment of Dr. Patrick Amoth as the Director General of Health. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 11, motion. Report on the consideration of the audited accounts of specified state corporations.
Chair, Chairperson, Public Investments Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture. Is the chairperson in the high? Yes, thank you very much. The Honorable Wangwe, please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the second report of the Public Investments Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Kenya Medical Training College for financial years 2017-2018 to 2020-2021. The Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital for financial years 2019-2020, the Kenya Medical Research Institute for financial years 2012-2013 and 2013-2014, the Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologies Board for financial years 2014-2015 to 2020-2021, and the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council for financial years 2017-2018 to 2020-2021, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 22nd February 2024. Honorable Speaker, during the deliberation of this by the committee, there are various issues that were discussed, and the report, Honorable Speaker, is shared in two versions. Version number 1, there are general committee observations, and version number 2, there are specific observations on specific entities that I've listed above. Honorable Speaker, allow me to begin by sharing with the House the general committee observations and recommendations. 1, there are issues that came out on the observations of the committee, being 1, lack of ownership documents on land and building. Honorable Speaker, the committee observed and noted with concern that several state corporations, which have been highlighted, the 5 of them in number, did not possess title documents for land and buildings in their occupation. Honorable Speaker, a case in point, Honorable Speaker, is the KMTC, which did not possess title for listed 19 parcels of land, which total acreage of 248.68 at the headquarters and constituent colleges all valued at 350,735,000. Honorable Speaker, a case of Kenyatta University Teaching Referral and Research Hospital does not possess title and ownership documents for their 100 acres of land that it sits on. Honorable Speaker, you can imagine an institution like KUTRH sitting on a land without a title, what it means and the massiveness of the infrastructure that is built. Honorable Speaker, Kenya Medical Research Institute does not possess title deed for various parcels of land valued at 227,642,500, being where the headquarters today of KEMRI with a size of 8.083 hectares. There is also land by KEMRI next to Kenyatta National Hospital, 1.34 hectares. There is also land by KEMRI in Kilifi, 2.705 hectares. There is land by KEMRI in Kwale, 2.023 hectares. Mbagathi Road, there is land by KEMRI, 2.4282 hectares. And in Taita Taveta, Honorable Speaker, land owned by KEMRI, 4.047 hectares. All those parcels of land, they are owned by KEMRI on paper, but they have no title documents. Honorable Speaker, it should be noted that under the IPSA, International Public Sector Accounting Standards, you can only put figures to paper if at all you have the ownership documents so that you can say these are your assets. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, you can imagine all the 5 institutions where they have placed us. What does it translate into, Honorable Speaker? They cannot value the land, and the committee further observed that Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital does not possess ownership document for these 100 acres that it sits on, and it cannot value that land because they have no title for that. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, whatever they state in the books today cannot be authenticated. And all those institutions, the 5 of them in total, cannot be authenticated because they have understated the values because they cannot value the land. Honorable Speaker, what does the committee recommend in terms of the general observations of the above? We recommended that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the accounting officers of the affected state corporations should liaise with the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, and the National Land Commission to fast-track the process of securing ownership documents for the corporation land. The accounting officers of the affected state corporations should report to the National Assembly within period on the status. We also recommended, Honorable Speaker, that the accounting officer of various state corporations should ensure that the entity's assets are valued periodically. Once they get the title deeds, Honorable Speaker, they should proceed and value the assets periodically and actual values included in the financial statements. The fair value of land should be disclosed in the financial statements in accordance with the IPSA's reporting standards, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we also saw, as a generality in the reporting, delay in availing documentation to the Auditor General. Honorable Speaker, it's against the law, especially Article 26 of the Constitution and Section 68(2) of the PFM Act 2012, not to avail documents to the Auditor General for audit. In general, we saw most of these organizations, Honorable Speaker, did not avail documentations to the Auditor General. And what surprised the committee, Honorable Speaker, is when now the accounting officer appears before the committee, he proposed to carry all the volumes that he did not give the Auditor General during audit. That makes it very difficult. And Honorable Speaker, we will be recommending as follows, that for those organizations who did not give the Auditor General documentation at the time of audit, 1, we said the accounting officer should comply with the provisions of this section 68(2) of the Public Finance Act of 2012 by submitting all the required information for audit within the stipulated time. We insisted on that clause. And 2, within 2 months upon adoption of this report, any accounting officer who fails to provide required information for audit pursuant to section 62(1) of the Public Audit Act 2015 should be prosecuted for the offense pursuant to that section of the Public Audit Act of 2015. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, we are asking the Committee on Implementation to enforce the Public Audit Act, especially Section 62(1), so that let the accounting officers abide by the provisions of the PFM Act, Section 68(2) of the PFM Act of 2012. Honorable Speaker, as a generality, what did we also observe? There are delays in appointment of board directors. Honorable Speaker, we noted with concern that some state corporations were operating without properly constituted board of directors. The anomaly was attributed to delays by the appointing authority to fill vacancies once they arise. Honorable Speaker, 2 or 3 of the above 5 operated without board of directors. That in itself, an institution lacks the corporate image that helps to make decisions. What did we recommend, Honorable Speaker? On that generality, we said within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the relevant appointing authority for the respective board members ensures that all existing vacancies for the respective state corporations are promptly filled, and that in future, the tenure of the board members is staggered to avoid a situation where the term of all board members expires at the same time. We know, Honorable Speaker, some board members are appointed by the executive through the various line ministries and others by the president. So we are seeking that we cannot really point at one, but instead we make it also as open as that. We also made a recommendation, Honorable Speaker, that the committee reprimands the then Cabinet Secretary for Health for failing to fill the vacancies that existed in the board of Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologies Board between 2018, Honorable Speaker, for 4 years, 2018 and 2022. That's a vast period, and yet the authority is by the minister to fill the board. Why did he not fill the board then? Honorable Speaker, we also note another generality on observation on irregular procurement processes and management of contracts. Generally, Honorable Speaker, there were concerns that some state corporations undertook irregular procurement processes contrary to the provisions of the Public Procurement and Assets Disposal Act of 2015 and the attendant regulations, legal notices, and government circulars, leading to the inflated costs of projects. Additionally, some contracts were managed poorly, leading to delays in completion, regularly cost variations, and thus causing unnecessary escalation of costs. Honorable Speaker, there are cost evaluations variations which were enormous. Usually there is variation allowable of 25%. But you could find, Honorable Speaker, in 2 or 3 organizations, as you will see in the detailed report that came up, some had to go beyond that 25%. That in itself is an irregularity, and we want to make the following general recommendations. That the accounting officers of state corporations should at all times ensure adherence to the budget, proper procurement planning, project management, and undertaking credible feasibility studies to prevent irregular variations during contract implementation. Honorable Speaker, should any breach be observed, the penalties prescribed in the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015 and the PFM Act 2012 should be evoked by the DPP on a person found culpable. As we will go in the detailed report, Honorable Speaker, you will see that those persons will be mentioned. The accounting officer of state corporations should at all times comply with the provisions of Section 139 of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. The relevant authority should take action against those who may have contravened the section of the Act. Honorable Speaker, another matter that came up as a generality is the issue of litigation. We observed among the 5 state corporations, there are matters pending in court. The committee observed that a number of litigations concerning ownership of the land of state corporations and other legal matters have been pending before the court of law inordinately long, despite resolutions of the House through the previous PICs, reports calling for the expeditious conclusion of the cases. Honorable Speaker, most of the reports by PIC, they talk of a time frame for conclusion of the matter, legal issues. Some of them, they were not even supposed to be in the courts of law. They were supposed to be in arbitration. And Honorable Speaker, no action has been taken by the various state corporations. And in the detailed report, Honorable Speaker, you'll be able to see. And therefore, we made the following general
recommendation that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the accounting officer whose lands are subject to legal suits or have other pending cases pertaining to the corporations should liaise with the Office of the Attorney General and petition the judiciary to consider prioritizing and expediting conclusion of the cases within the view of restoring the land to the public. Honorable Speaker, why should we seek that they petition judiciary? Because the mandate of litigation, the mandate of making any legal decision is by the judiciary. And Honorable Speaker, judiciary is held in trust because it's also serving the general public, and land is general public. So we are saying, Honorable Speaker, let also the judiciary take it fit that matters of land where institutions are seated very heavily in very heavy infrastructure has been built. Let them also deem it fit to quickly decide on matters touching on land, especially where government institutions are concerned. Number 2 of that general decision, Honorable Speaker, we say the accounting officers should strive to embrace alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in the solution of disputes before going to court. Most of the issues, Honorable Speaker, could have been decided at an alternative dispute mechanism, but accounting officers have let it go to court without necessarily being the route. Honorable Speaker, the 6th observation which we made as a generality of the 5 institutions is delayed recovery of receivables. Honorable Speaker, the committee particularly noted that Kithuri was in breach of Section 71 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and the attendant regulations that require surrender of interest within 7 days upon conclusion of the assignment for which the said interest was issued. Honorable Speaker, you find that Kithuri sends students overseas to undertake studies, but they don't consider recollection of the interest. Officers go out, they come back at will, and Honorable Speaker, year in, year out, officers don't declare their interest. That in itself is against the law, and we recommended that the accounting officers should ensure that interest advanced to officers is surrendered within the stipulated period of 7 days after return to the workstation in accordance with Section 93 of the Public Finance Management National Government Regulations of 2015. And within 6 months, Honorable Speaker, of adoption of this report, we also recommend that the accounting officers who will have failed to take necessary steps to ensure that all outstanding interests within the jurisdiction are recovered from the due date should be surcharged the full amount due to the interest due with interest at the prevailing CBK rate. Because, Honorable Speaker, this is a laissez-faire attitude by the accounting officers who simply watch the interest not being collected, and they continue dispersing more interest to the same officers. Yet, Honorable Speaker, accounting officers are the custodians of the same law. So we are saying a situation where the accounting officer does not recover the money, then we should compel him that we recover the money from the said accounting officer, so that they become they are held accountable, Honorable Speaker, to that extent. Honorable Speaker, having highlighted the generalities in terms of observation, allow me to go to a few selected specific entities that had issues, as I had mentioned. There are issues on receivables, which I would want to highlight, especially the entity Kenya Medical Training College. There were observations on 23rd report of Public Investments Committee and touching on receivables from exchange and non-exchange transactions. And we noted, Honorable Speaker, that KMTC Board of Management had recommended write-off for the amount of 21,831,115 and 19,812,181 from Kenyatta National Hospital and the Ministry of Medical Services, respectively. However, approval in this respect had not been obtained from the Ministry of Health. Number 2, the audit query on accumulated rent arrears by the University of Nairobi had been considered in the 19th report to the Public Investments Committee. The committee recommended for speedy resolution of the matters and seizure of the property in question. Honorable Speaker, these are 2 issues. The recommendation had been put to the ministry by the board to approve a very simple write-off, which was to be transmitted to the National Treasury in accordance with the law. The ministry has stuck on this write-off, Honorable Speaker. So you find the books of KMTC are always loaded with this as a receivable, yet, Honorable Speaker, the board has confirmed that this money cannot be receivable. Honorable Speaker, there is also a dispute arising from the relationship between KMTC and University of Nairobi with respect to the rental units that they have. This is a very old matter, Honorable Speaker, that we need to look at, and we avoid loading the books of KMTC with unnecessary receivables which are actually not there. So what does the committee recommend, Honorable Speaker? We recommended that within 3 months upon the adoption of this report, the National Treasury, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Education should fast-track resolution of the matter raised in the audit query and the observation of this committee and report back to the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, we also recommend that the Committee on Implementation should follow up on the implementation of the PIC recommendations pursuant to its mandate. Honorable Speaker, there are about 4 recommendations touching on the very issues that we are touching on today. Therefore, if we can follow those 2 recommendations, Honorable Speaker, we should expect that we bring this matter to an end. We don't overload the books of KMTC to look as if KMTC has money receivable. Yet, Honorable Speaker, we are not helping the organization. Honorable Speaker, we also noted from the books of KMTC the issue of ownership documents, where 22 parcels of land located at the headquarters and constituent colleges with a total acreage of 277.587 acres. They are valued at 502,485,000. It is only the Nairobi, Kakamega, and Portrees campuses that possess title deeds. Honorable Speaker, it's very shocking that all other campuses do not possess title deeds. In the absence of the evaluation report for the 32 parcels of land, the property, plant, and equipment balance, which they reflect in their own books, Honorable Speaker, of 6,393,208,699 in this financial statement as of 30th June 2018 was not fairly stated. So, Honorable Speaker, you can see you are weighting the books with 6.3 billion, but in real sense, Honorable Speaker, you cannot confirm the 6.3 billion. Honorable Speaker, we look at what we feel in our recommendation to the institution, that, Honorable Speaker, within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the accounting officer should liaise with the Ministry of Lands, Ministry of Health, and the National Land Commission to ensure that they secure ownership documents for all the colleges' land and report back to the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, the other issue I wish to bring as a specific observation is the observation touching on Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral, and Research Hospital. On the issue of property, plant, and equipment, Honorable Speaker, the committee observed the hospital does not possess title deed and ownership documents for the 100 acres of land it sits on. The management of the hospital has made efforts to acquire ownership documents. However, the title deed has not been issued in the name of KTRH. The land has not been valued by a competent and registered valuer, and therefore the value they presented to us, Honorable Speaker, read 5,320,106,243, reflected the financial statement as of 30th June 2020, which we could not be confirmed. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the area around Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital and the installations on that land, it cannot be valued at 5.3. It's definitely more than that. Honorable Speaker, what do we recommend? We recommend that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the accounting officers should liaise with the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Lands, Minister of Health, and the National Land Commission to ensure that they secure ownership documents for all the land and report back to the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, we also noted as an observation in the books of Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital that the accounting officer incurred an over-expenditure of 8,147,790 and thus breached Section 12 of the State Corporations Act, Cap 446, which requires that no state corporation shall, without the prior approval in writing of the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, incur any expenditure for which provisions have not been made in an annual estimate. Honorable Speaker, this money was paid to the board of directors irregularly. So what do we recommend, Honorable Speaker? we recommended that the committee reprimands the then accounting officer for violating Section 12 of the State Corporation Act, Cap 446, and within 3 months, Honorable Speaker, upon adoption of this report, the Director Inspectorate of State Corporations should surcharge with interest at the prevailing CBK rate, then accounting officer, and then board of directors for the irregular expenditure and provide documentary evidence on the recovery and surcharge. So that, Honorable Speaker, these directors paid themselves all the 8 million. And whoever paid them, plus themselves who received that money, should be surcharged. And the government should recover and repossess that money, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we also noted the irregular employee costs. The accounting officer, Honorable Speaker, breached Section 8 of the State Corporations Act, Cap 446, for the irregular payment of medical allowance referred as locum amounting to 30,844,552 to medical staff without approval of the board. Honorable Speaker, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is the only authority outlined in the Constitution to approve salaries and allowances of officers working in government institutions. However, there was no evidence provided to prove that locum had been approved by SRC after KUTRH board approval. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, in light of that, we recommended that the committee reprimands the then accounting officer for violating Section 8 of the State Corporations Act, for which provides that the quorum for conduct of business at a meeting of a board shall be 2/3 of the total number of members of the board. Honorable Speaker, this decision to pay the 30 million was arrived at when the board was not fully constituted. Therefore, it meant it was a way of making some ill recommendations to pay out the 30 million without the full board recommendation. The committee then, Honorable Speaker, reprimands the then accounting officer for failing to adhere to Article 230(4)(a) of the Constitution. And we say within 3 months upon the adoption of this report, Honorable Speaker, the EACC should investigate the conduct of the then accounting officer and the then board of directors on the payment of locum amounting to 30,844,552 to ascertain any impropriety. Should any officer be found culpable, the DPP to take the necessary action. Honorable Speaker, the final issue we observed in Kenyatta University Teaching and Research Hospital was the issue of non-submission of assets and liabilities register. Honorable Speaker, the then accounting officer for Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital was in breach of Section 143(1) of PFM National Government Regulations 2015, which requires the accounting officer that shall be responsible for maintaining a register of assets under his or her control. And number 2, the accounting officer failed to submit the assets and liability register for the year ended 30th June 2020 to the National Treasury as required by the National Treasury Circular number 2320 dated 14th October 2020. This, Honorable Speaker, could be a conspiracy by the Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital officers to conceal the assets of the hospital for their own interest. Honorable Speaker, what do we recommend? We recommend that within 3 months, upon adoption of this report, the accounting officer should comply with the provisions of this regulation, number 143(1) of the PFM National Government Regulations 2015, and submit assets and liabilities register to the National Treasury as also required by the circular number 2320 dated 14th October 2020. And Honorable Speaker, the updated fixed register asset should be submitted to the National Assembly, Auditor General for verification and reporting in the subsequent audit cycle, failure to which disciplinary action should be taken against the accounting officer in accordance with Section 74 of the PFM Act 2012. Honorable Speaker, the third institution, Kenya Medical Research Institute, Honorable Speaker, we had the issue on property, plant, and machinery, and the committee observed that the matter was considered in the PIC report, number 19, in which the committee observed the following. The Institute failed to avail title documents of the aforementioned parcels of land for verification, thus making it impossible to confirm the ownership status of the parcel of land in contravention of Section 37 of the PFM Act. Honorable Speaker, this is a case of 9 years since the audit revealed the issue of the land, and no replacement nor surrender of the title has been realized. The accounting officer provided provisional certificates of title for LR 82774 and LR 78302. What do we recommend, Honorable Speaker? We feel that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, ESCC and DCI, because these are matters, Honorable Speaker, that cuts across both ethics and criminality. So we felt ESCC and DCI should both investigate how the former CEO, Dr. David Koech, failed to hand over the institute title deeds for the corporation's parcel of land, their custody, or who holds them, and in whose name should any person be found culpable, the Director of Public Prosecution to take the necessary action. Honorable Speaker, we lifted this as the recommendations of the of the former PIC report in the 19th report. Therefore, it's the same that we brought together since the audit report carried on each other in a similar way. Honorable Speaker, there is the issue that came up as another observation for Kemri, residential staff housing. We see, Honorable Speaker, the matter was considered by the 19th report in the PIC. However, the matter regarding ownership and custody of the land title in which the staff house are situated is still questionable. Honorable Speaker, they built a lot of staff houses, but nothing has been taken. Now, on the issue of this staff housing, something new that came up in this audit was there is purported transfer, Honorable Speaker, that despite the National Treasury having made payment totaling to 422 million in respect of clearing the loan due to the National Bank of Kenya on behalf of Cyper Enterprises Limited, Honorable Speaker, National Treasury paid 422 million, but the ownership title has not transferred to Kemri. So between the transfer of title from Cyber to Kemri, Honorable Speaker, something seems to have gone wrong. This is the new matter that has come up in this audit, and Honorable Speaker, we recommend it as follows: that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, ESCC and DCI should investigate the then accounting officer Kemri and Kemri officers involved in the procurement transaction to the land in question, directors of Cyper Enterprises Limited, both the then and the current managing director, National Bank of Kenya, and the then permanent secretary, National Treasury, officer who authorized the payment of 422 million with a view to establishing the culpability to fraud. Should any person be found culpable, the DPP to take necessary legal action. Honorable Speaker, the issue of payment and no title, they paid to who and for who, yet the title is nowhere to be traced, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the last institution that we went through is the Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists Board, where, Honorable Speaker, the dispute between Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians, we observed that the dispute between Kenya Medical Laboratories Technician and Technologists Board and Prime Communication Limited has been concluded through a court ruling in which the board was ordered to pay 13,400,000 in fees. The case had been settled and payables paid. Arising from the foregoing, the committee also made the following observations: that the contract dated 30th December, Honorable Speaker, did not expressly state the contract sum or the basis of charging the fees contrary to Section 85(4) of the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. Honorable Speaker, the accounting officer decided to give a plain order without any summation of the amount on what to do, what to pay in advertisement between the board and this advertising Prime Communications Limited. And Honorable Speaker, as a result of that, the court ruled in favor of the Prime Communications Limited and surcharged the organization by 2 million 524,750, which was a surcharge on the invoice. And even the prime amount, Honorable Speaker, was not determined. Therefore, what did the committee recommend? That the debt relating to inspection fees has been outstanding for more than 10 years. That is the length, the duration of the, no, that's another recommendation. Honorable Speaker, that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the accounting officer should fully implement the committee recommendation as contained in the 20th PIC report that recommended the board to institute a debt recovery system to avoid undue delays in debt collection, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is also the issue of financial position touching on this organization, that the matter which also had been considered in the 20th report of the Public Investments Committee, where the committee observed that the board lacks sufficient personnel to assist in enforcement of inspection to raise more revenue. In that respect, the committee recommended that parent ministry and the National Treasury allocates funds to the board to enable it streamline its operation, including recruitment of more staff. Honorable Speaker, the board is still struggling to finance its operations despite the committee recommendations. The board operations rely on the revenue received from registration and licensing of medical laboratories, technicians, and technologies, which is inadequate to finance its operations and run as a going concern. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, what do we recommend? We recommend that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the Principal Secretary, State Department for Public Health and Professional Standards, in collaboration with the Attorney General and the National Assembly, to initiate the legal process, Honorable Speaker, to amend Section 33 of the Medical Laboratories, Technicians and Technologies Act number 10 of 1999 to expressly provide appropriation of funds by the National Assembly as one of the sources of funds to the board. Honorable Speaker, this is one case where the board suffers a lot. It is not entitled to get funds from the appropriation account. But Honorable Speaker, when you look at the activities that the board is carrying, they are entitled to getting funds from the appropriation vote. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, it's our considered opinion that we should now initiate that process. Either we will do it as a committee or any other member can take it up and process, so that, Honorable Speaker, we amend Section 33 of the Medical Laboratories, Technicians and Technologies Act to allow the board to get the funds. Finally, Honorable Speaker, Kenya Medical Practitioners Dentists Council, KMPDC, we observed as follows. On account of the critical mandate of the council, the committee noted that there is need for KMPDC to be supported by the Exchequer. This is another organization with the same problem, Honorable Speaker. The council operations rely on the revenue received from registration and licensing of doctors and health facilities, which is inadequate to finance its operations and run as a going concern. Honorable Speaker, what do we recommend? We recommend that within 3 months upon adoption of this report, the National Assembly should do the same way, initiate the legal process to amend Section 25 of the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Act to expressly provide for direct disbursement of funds to the council without the ministry seeking approval from the National Treasury. Honorable Speaker, the caveat in this Section 25 of this board is that for you to get any allocation, the ministry has to seek approval from the National Treasury before it even appropriates funds, which is contrary to the current constitution, Honorable Speaker. The constitution is it should initiate the budget in the sector roles so that it goes upwards to the National Treasury, which is the opposite, Honorable Speaker. So I'll be employing to my colleagues. At the same time, my committee will be able to take up the role it deserves so that, Honorable Speaker, we initiate the process to make sure that we amend Section 25 of this Boards Act and to get the funds direct from the Exchequer. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and ask my colleague, the great member, Honorable Martin Peters Owino, commonly known as Ward Chief, to second.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this time to second this motion, and I want to thank my Honorable Chair, for such eloquent and with specificity as you move this motion. Mr. Speaker, we did interrogate about 5 corporations, and some had very, very voluminous documentation, but we went through them all. Allow me not to go into the specifics because my chair has really mentioned many of them, but I want to just highlight some things that really bedevil these corporations. Mr. Speaker, we do invest in corporations, state corporations, in order to get the good out of them, to plow back for social good for the Kenyans. And it is going around that these corporations, some are not doing well, and it is because of these reasons why we have unearthed them so that it can be looked into and corrected. Mr. Speaker, one of them which came out very clearly from my chair is the issue of land. Many chunks of land, prime areas, no documentation, no title deeds, and people encroach into the land. And this attracts litigations. And again, as you know, litigations also attract expenditures, which eats into the same coffer which we are trying to get out of this corporation to invest somewhere else. Also, these lands were valued very less in some circumstances, and sometimes have no value also. And they're there just in the books. The other issue which came very glaringly, Mr. Speaker, is the board formation. Sometimes some corporations had delay in the boards. As you know, the boards hold the fiduciary responsibility in making decisions and also oversighting the management. Lack of boards interfered with checks and balances. That means money are being lost here and there. That also piggyback into the irregularities in procurement, which the chair talked about. In many times, we had inflated costs, irregular advertisements, and of course, escalations, of course, because of delays. And this costed these corporations a lot of money, especially when they were doing the projects. Checks and balances were not as tight as we expected as a committee for the programs to be flawless, and also did not bring the accountability and responsibilities we needed in running a proper corporation to give returns. At times, the work plans were not properly followed. And you find that what was yet ought to have been done 6 months ago have not been implemented. And there were some reasons to this which we also saw coming from them. And one of the reasons, Honorable Speaker, was the budget. The budget and the exchequer release. I think this is, as a house, we should do something, because most of the time these corporations start projects, and at the end of almost the end of the fiscal year, you find the absorption has not been done because the exchequer did not release the monies on time. What does that do? If you are having a project going on, definitely if it runs into another fiscal year, you will have project overrun, and that is expensive. It will eat into the allocations that was put there. Also, sometimes in some of them, Mr. Speaker, we found that the budgets were not realistic. And also that had an effect on projects, of course. If you are under quote or you are under budget, you cannot finish. You need to look for additional resources which may not be forthcoming. And most of the time you find project stalls, and that causes a lot of overrun costs. Some of the fixed assets registers, as was mentioned by the chair, were lacking. If they were there, they were not updated at all. So you find the whole team is here, but they don't have updated fixed assets, which we found was very to the Committee on Implementation. Mr. Speaker, when we were going through all this, we found items which were recommended by previous committees, PIC committee, and have not been acted upon. Because our work as committee is just to is to recommend what to be done. Some we have done in 3 months, some we have asked that after 6 months this would be done. And the implementation committee, which is also in this house, is called to bite. If an issue is recommended to ACC or DPP, they should follow up to make sure that they are corrected, not to go into another fiscal year and come back to the committee again. So members, I really urge you, please support this motion, adopt it, so that it can go straight to the implementation committee. When we get into another fiscal year, we can deal with other years and not this one. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I second.
Honorable members, I now propose the question that this House adopts the second report of the Public Investments Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture on its consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the Kenya Medical Training College for financial years 2017-2018 to 2020-2021. The Kenyatta University Teaching Referral and Research Hospital for the financial years 2019 to 2020. The Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists Board for financial years 2014 to 2015 and 2020 to 2021. 2020 to 2021. And the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council for the financial years 2017-2018 to 2020-2021, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, the 22nd of February, 2024. The Honorable Member for Wajir North. Proceed, Honorable Sani. Please give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The PIC report is very comprehensive, and a quick scan of it tells there are commonalities in the institutions so audited. Kemri, Kenyatta University Referral Hospital, the Kenyatta National Hospital. What is common is that there are governance issues. The fact that boards are not constituted at the right time. That breeds a lot of complacence in terms of work ethics and how these organizations operate. It breeds corruption because the board, in the essence of having a board in every organization is to make sure that governance issues is done at its best. The best practices that is common in managing such organizations has been lacking, and I believe that is the root cause of issues where the management are supposed to be accountable insofar as the management of those organizations are concerned. Mr. Speaker, land is an issue that is common in all the reports of this organization, that they don't have titles to the pieces of land they own. And land being an asset, that has a big impact or consequences on their accounts, audited accounts. So I don't know at this point why such institutions, national institutions, Kemri, Kenyatta University Referral Hospital and Kenyatta National Hospital cannot up to now have a title in their names. That raises serious questions on the governance aspects too, and that is why their audited accounts should have issues. Valuation of that land is also a problem because the land do not have titles. And that is what affects the audited accounts. The boards of directors are not always in place at the right time. Of concern to me, Mr. Speaker, is issues touching procurement. At this point in time, when we have a constitution, a pragmatic, very promising, progressive constitution, the 2010 constitution, which has put a high threshold on establishing the legal framework for which procurement is being managed. We have procurement issues in all these organizations, actually in all the organizations which the report covers. When our constitution has set standards that procurement practices must be competitive, must be fair, transparent, cost-effective, that is the basis on which any procurement law must be anchored. At this point, it is demotivating. It is demotivating why Kenyatta National Hospital, KEMRI, and the other institution, Kenyatta University Referral Hospital, cannot make sure that those constitutional requirements, that threshold, is not met, and we have pilferage of public funds. Of concern to me too, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that some CEOs are acting. This House has just been approving a CEO, the Director of Medical Services, who has been on an acting capacity for some 5 years. CEOs, if you ask yourself, why should CEOs be on an acting capacity? It is an issue, that's what breeds corruption. CEOs are being held hostage. They are not substantive holders of their offices. They will be rendered indecisive because they are not the substantive office holders. And in so doing, they will be cajoled or kind of asked to comply into some ungodly practices. And that means corruption thrives in such institutions just because there is no CEO, Mr. Speaker. Another concern is such big institutions, national institutions, have issues to do with interest, recovery of interest. Even smaller institutions have policies on managing their interest, Mr. Speaker. It is a big concern that Kenyatta National Hospital, Referral Hospital, a National Referral Hospital, KEMRI, have issues to do with interest. I believe time has come that the law must be followed to the letter. I'm sure it's a big corruption is a big concern as we speak. And the only way to manage, to do away with such practices is to make sure that everybody behaves ethical. It is criminal to make sure that it is criminal to use government funds and not accounting for them, Mr. Speaker. With those few concerns, I believe it is time to improve on the governance aspect of all these organizations. More so, such big, gigantic institutions should be the best to lead in the way of, in accounting for taxpayers' money. I support the report, and I would wish that these big institutions should have been the ones mentoring and leading the way for other institutions to follow. I support.
The MP for Turkana North, Ekwam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am a member of this committee and wish to thank the chair and the members for taking their time, our time together to put up this report. Mr. Speaker, much has been said, much has been put across by the chair in sharing the details of the report. I just want to add a few that, Mr. Speaker, one of the things we identified in interrogating the auditor's report and the staff of the different institutions was there was lack of enterprise-wide risk management in most of the institutions. Mr. Speaker, this is a requirement for institutions, and a lack of it is a big challenge in terms of managing resources that the government or public resources that have been invested into these institutions. Mr. Speaker, as alluded by the chair and the other speakers, most of these institutions sit on a land that do not have titles. And you realize, because of that, some of these land parcels have been grabbed by private individuals to the extent that there are cases that have been taken to court. And you realize these cases attract costs to these institutions. And so the committee has recommended that all the lands that these institutions sit and purport to own must have titles. That way, they will be able to protect them from land grabbers and also make use of them. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that was glaring from this interaction with the institutions in this report was a lot of interests have not been recovered, and for a long time. And there are policies that guide use, utilization, and recovery. But that has not been followed. And the committee recommended that this must be done not less than 3 months. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that has also been so glaring in most of these institutions is when auditors get into these institutions, documents are not failed, and they take long to fail documents to auditors. And so, by the time reports are concluded, auditors are not able to confirm some of the issues or queries that come out of those audits. And so we want to encourage personnel of these institutions, and in all of them, that auditors must be availed with documents that they require so that we will be able to know whether public resources have been utilized well. Mr. Speaker, as also alluded by the previous speakers, and picking example of Kenyatta University referral, teaching and referral hospital. This is a level 6 hospital, though young than the others, but there are a lot of things that are not right. One, Mr. Speaker, the title to this institution has been in dispute for a long time. And just because the land where this this hospital sits is part of the university, Kenyatta University. But there's been a problem. And I want to believe that problem is within the university to get out this land or provide the title for the land that is meant for the university. We've made a strong recommendation to the head of public services to expedite this process of getting the title for the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. Mr. Speaker, again, in that university hospital, as also alluded, it took some time, and maybe this will be confirmed by the implementation committee, whether the CEO, who for a long time had not been confirmed, and the human resource manual that is in place only allows acting position for 6 months. This is not followed in most of our institutions, as we realized in the audited statements. And so such a serious institution needs needs to confirm their CEO. Mr. Speaker, I want to leave at that and say I support this report. Thank you.
The MP for Githunguri, Madam Wamuchomba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My name's Gathoni Wamuchomba.
Order, it's not a Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Wamuchomba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My apologies. My name's Gathoni Wamuchomba.
Okay.
I just needed to clarify that. I rise to support that very detailed report from the Honorable Committee. And I must confess that that committee has done quite a commendable job. Matters land are very complicated. Auditing land that is in the hands of state corporations and authorities sometimes becomes very difficult and complicated, owing to the fact that sometimes the officers, the accounting officers, have a lot of bureaucracy for them to be able to get the right and relevant documents that are supposed to be used during audit. Auditing land that pertains to universities like Kenyatta University, the land that is used to settle the Kenyatta Referral Hospital, it's something that gives me excitement because I am not only an interested party in the land, but I am a neighbor. And as you all know, that sometimes when the neighbor's compound has issues, you also have issues. Mr. Speaker, allow me to just congratulate the committee because they have outlined issues that have been a pain to the communities that use that land for a long time. And how I wish that that kind of in-depth audit can also happen to the pieces of land that are now being used for special economic zones. Because the issues that I have heard from the report that has been tabled sounds like there are similar issues that we are hearing from communities that are now getting displaced or accommodated within the special economic zones. I hope that that committee has the mandate to also do an audit on the many parcels of land that we are handing over under that kind of a program. Mr. Speaker, I am very much concerned about issues of title deed. The report clearly states that there are institutions, government-affiliated institutions, that own land by paper, but they don't have the titles. That is the same scenario, Mr. Speaker, with some of the schools, public schools, that we are funding as members of parliament through CDF. We are forced to struggle so much to locate titles so that we can be able to put money, government money, in such schools. Unfortunately, some of these schools are schools that are constructed within the compound of those public entities and institutions that have been audited through that committee. I am very particular, Mr. Speaker, when I speak about title deeds, because I don't know how we are ever going to sort out this issue if we don't speak now, audit now, and give directions now. For example, Mr. Speaker, when I speak about the schools that are under the special economic zones, for example, in my county, Kiambu, we have the Tatu City Economic Zone. Before that area was outlined as a special economic zone, there were schools that were surviving in that piece of land. Not one school. For example, it's good to be factual. Under Tatu City Special Economic Zone, we have Gewe Primary School, Oaklad Primary School, Tatu Primary School, and Oaklad. Have I said Oaklad? Oaklad, Tatu, Gewe. Those schools traditionally were there before we allocated or transformed that land as a special economic zone. When the new investors come, they assume that the schools in the zone belongs to them. And they own the land, and they also purport to own the schools. But that cannot happen because, Mr. Speaker, these are schools that were funded using taxpayers' money, are continuously being funded, supported by the government through TSC. Teachers are posted in those schools. Money for capitation is shared in those schools. But the investors assume because we gave them the area as a special economic zone, they own the schools. So as we speak right now, Mr. Speaker, we don't know who owns those 3 public primary schools and where the title deed for those 3 public primary schools is. Mr. Speaker, this House must intentionally move to the direction of creating order, providing legal framework and policy documents that will guide us going forward. And therefore, when I listen to that very detailed report from my committee, my colleagues' committee, I am very excited. And how I pray that the recommendations that have been given by our honorable members from that committee are recommendations that are going to be implemented. They are recommendations that are going to guide us on how we are going to make legal framework so that we don't have these things coming up and back and forth. Back to the land that is hosting Kenyatta University Referral Hospital. Mr. Speaker, if we are not careful, that issue is going to be the next volcano, both politically and economically. And it's going to concern so many livelihoods. I cannot imagine that the report I have heard talks about whatever has been invested in that piece of land that occupies both the university and the hospital, spreading to even private hospital, is worth 5.1 billion. I can't imagine that is the kind of report that we are talking about. And therefore, if we are going to plan around the 5.1 billion, we are going to be deceiving ourselves and deceiving the communities that have invested around that area. I know of people who have invested more than 30 million shillings as individuals in the area surrounding the hospital. And therefore, if we ignore the amount of investment that has been put around that land and give government offices untrue facts and make relevant laws and policies around untrue and misrepresented facts, we are soon going to get ourselves in a lot of problems. And therefore, it is my sincere hope as a lawmaker, as a leader, that this issue is not just going to be taken just like any other report that we have received in this House. I hope the Committee of Implementation, under the leadership and the guidance of the Speaker, is going to be given the right direction and timelines on when some of these recommendations should be put in place and should be effected. Otherwise, we are going to be singing a round game song that will not have echo until the problems comes back to us. Mr. Speaker, before I sit down, even as I congratulate the committee for the wonderful investigations that has been done, I still feel that there are other institutions that hold land that is in contempt, that is in contentious processes that needs to be audited. When I speak about other institutions, I'm also speaking about institutions that are holding land as sponsors of institutions, acting as mother institutions of upcoming institutions. We need to be very clear on how to go about the issues of land ownership of institutions that are purportedly sponsored by other institutions in existence. For example, Mr. Speaker, if you are to invest in a new TVET, the Ministry of Education directs you to invest in a new TVET, but sponsored by a mother TVET. And therefore, every time you have a question concerning land, you are not referred to the upcoming TVET, but you have to go through the sponsoring TVET. Some of these sponsoring TVETs are not in the same neighborhood with the upcoming TVET. And therefore, they may not know the implications of some of the decisions they make around land. And therefore, we find ourselves pumping money into upcoming institutions, which are sponsored by existing institutions, according to the laws, but the actual community land issues are not sorted by the mother sponsors of that institution. It is my sincere hope that this audit is not going to stop here. This audit is going to continue, and issues pertaining land and titling of land that is purported supposed to be under the public authorities and agencies related to government is put up very clearly. And before we put money or we fund such institutions, the title deeds should be clear so that we do not get ourselves into issues. As we speak about land, we cannot trust people who are in acting capacity for some of these sensitive issues. This issue of acting CEOs.
Add her another 1 minute, half a minute. What's the problem?
Thank you. Thank you for the addition. With the issue of having most of the government-related offices being governed and led by acting people people in acting capacity is something that is very worrying. Because some of these CEOs and finance managers in an acting capacity, sometimes they always give excuses of not completing an assignment or committing themselves into an issue because they are in acting capacity. I hope that after we are done with auditing of this land that is under the public authorities, we are also going to audit how many public institutions have CEOs as acting as actors of the actual oppositions held. And I think that is something that we need to look at because it is very, very important to safeguard the resources of this country. Otherwise, I support the report and congratulate the committee and the chair of the committee for the wonderful report tabled. Thank you.
Yeoman Rep for Wajir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a member of this committee, PIC Committee on Social Service, Administration and Agriculture, a watchdog committee that examines the Auditor's General report to ensure that there is effectiveness and efficiency in the use of the public resource. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my chairman and the committee for bringing such a very good report, working tirelessly just to come up with this report. Mr. Speaker, you find before this, before this 13th Parliament, I understand PIC was just one. And there was no one time in the previous 12th and 11th Parliament, and even beyond that, that some of these institutions were never audited. And it's the first time we have audited, and you will find in these corporate, state corporations that some of these state corporations have not been audited for the past 50, 40, even beyond that. The many years they have existed, and there are so many of that. And I remember we came across more than 50 state corporations that were never audited. And you can imagine, Mr. Speaker, this is a public resource that you're given. You use, and there is nothing to show that you have indeed used this prudently. Your gaze is as good as mine, Mr. Speaker. And some of the issues we have come across in these state corporations were delay in availing documentation, Mr. Speaker. You know, when these auditor generals go to these state corporations, the people they meet, the accounting officers, do not share the proper documentations. In this case, you're told the accounting officer did not give the reconciled financial and accounting records required by the PFM Act, Mr. Speaker. And they do this so that they are not caught on the things they do, Mr. Speaker. Not knowing that the money they use are the taxpayers' money of these people. Delaying of appointments, Mr. Speaker. When a state corporation has not indeed put board of directors for more than 2 years, how does that institution work? You wonder. And it's probably the PS that runs that particular state corporation. And because of that, There are so many vacancies that cannot be filled, Mr. Speaker. And it's my hope as a committee member, that this report shall be implemented in the next 3 months as we requested, Mr. Speaker. Coming back to KMTC and the Kenyatta University Referral Hospital, Teaching Referral Hospital, Mr. Speaker, we see chunks of lands in this institution that do not have ownership. People are just taking the land of the government. Even the CEOs that left, these institutions had issues with title deeds. They did not have title deeds. Even besides the PIC writing to them, there were no clear indications of the CEOs trying to get the title deeds of this institution, Mr. Speaker. If I come back to KMTC, KMTC have many branches even in the counties, Mr. Speaker. And you'll find, like myself, the Wajir KMTC branch, Mr. Speaker, which was supported by, I remember, the county government of Wajir in the year 2013 to 2017. The land it sits on, it's not, it has no perimeter wall. And you can understand the community that surrounds the institution, what can happen to it if it doesn't have a title deed. Look at the Kenyatta University Referral Hospital. They have a big chunk of land, but they have no title deed. You know where it is situated and the community that surrounds. It's very vital that we take this institution seriously and we force this institution to bring title deeds for this state corporation, Mr. Speaker. Another issue we have come across is officers taking allowances, going back out of the countries, coming back and not even issuing an imprest, Mr. Speaker. We have Cambridge Institution, 5 years. When we wrote this report, it was 5 years from the time these officers took this money, the taxpayers' money, and 5 years down the line, the officers from Cambridge did not issue an imprest. Where on earth, Mr. Speaker, do you see, even you as a member of parliament today, if you get out of this country and you come back, the first thing you do is to issue or to surrender your imprest, Mr. Speaker. It's high time we take this institution seriously, that we are looking at, take us seriously so that they can account for any penny they take from the taxpayers' money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have seen a regular procurement process and management contrary to provision of Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act 2015. What do you see here, Mr. Speaker? Delay in completion of contract. You award someone a contract, he takes his sweetest time to complete the contract, Mr. Speaker. You find someone inflating the cost of the contract from the time he signed the contract to the time he completed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with institutions that are not serious, that do not want to take care of the taxpayers' money of this country. We have a nuclear agencies who are telling us to account for any penny we take, Mr. Speaker. And we saw the other day the president abolishing more than 40-something institutions. Some of these institutions, it's high time we have a hard conversation. If they cannot account for the taxpayers' money, we abolish them, Mr. Speaker. So I ask this committee, this House, implementation committee, to take this report seriously, to give us feedback in the next 3 months, and hopefully we can be able to take forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Madam Kemei, and followed by Please give her the mic.
To add my voice on this very important report on consideration of the audited accounts of specified state corporations, which in this case we have 5 of them. Honorable Speaker, I really want to thank the chair and the members of PIC for this very, very detailed report. When I listened, Honorable Speaker, I realized that the committee have done a wonderful work. The work of compliance, Honorable Speaker, is not something very easy. And looking at the years which they actually audited, so many years, over 10 years. I even went to an extent of trying to converse with the chair if it was a mistake that the Kenya Medical Research, that is KEMRI, were audited for the year 2012, 2013, and then 2013, 2014. Those are very many years ago. And it is not very easy to get information, to get records for all those years. So I must commend the chair and the members of this very, very important committee, Honorable Speaker. And looking at the report, Honorable Speaker, I realize that we have so many issues concerning our corporations, and especially the issue of land ownership. That is so emotive, and it is not only affecting these institutions, but very many, many others. So this one being one of them, it is very unfair, it is very sad to have government institutions sitting on land that has no title deeds. This is the cause of many issues that we have. When it comes to land grabbing, it is because there are no title deeds. So those people who have brains and who have time can go look for this piece of land. Maybe they go to the Ministry of Land, look at the land that has no title, and that is where land grabbing comes in, Honorable Speaker. I'm also much concerned that we can put up large buildings, very expensive buildings, and there are no titles. It is very sad. And I'm wondering, Honorable Speaker, what the real cause of this could be. The Ministry of Land have to come out very strong. Sometimes we hear that maybe documents get lost, and they should be automated so that when somebody calls to look for these documents, it is very, very easy to get them, Honorable Speaker. And as much as we say these are state corporations, I feel that they shouldn't do much of development on this land without titles, Honorable Speaker. Sometimes, even private developers and even other institutions, Honorable Speaker, demolition takes place because the land belongs to somebody else. So millions and billions of money go to waste out of that. So for this committee, you have actually opened eyes to many, many institutions, many people in this country, and I would actually support this very, very important report. And in line with that, still, Honorable Speaker, you will realize that because there are no titles, the value of land changes, and without that, they don't also pay the rates, the land rates and all that. Or even if they do, they are undervalued. That is when we lose a lot of taxpayers' money, Honorable Speaker, that should have been used for other purposes. And for that, I would say that for the PIC, this is a job well done. I was listening carefully, and they made a lot of recommendations, Honorable Speaker. And the recommendations, of course, to go to within 3 months, this should have been done, and then goes to the implementation committee, who should also take this work very, very seriously. And with that, we will be able to move ahead, Honorable Speaker. Now, and from these corporations, I also learned that the issues or the challenges that they have is one of them being delayance in the appointment of the board members. Honorable Speaker, I was just asking myself, why the delay? And especially the Ministry of Health, why that delay? We have so many people who are jobless in this country. We have so many people who are looking for these opportunities. So why the delay? The Cabinet Secretary of Health, for that matter, has done something that is so unfair to this country. I'm even shocked why they have not filled those positions. And that is why we have these issues. And from one of the recommendations from the committee, staggering should be done so that when some board members are out, others, as they wait to fill the positions, then we'll have the minimum, which can be 5 out of maybe the 10 or 11. I'm aware, Honorable Speaker, having been a board member or a director in one of the corporations in this country, it is very, very important for the business to continue, but it cannot continue, Honorable Speaker, when the numbers are not reaching the minimum. So I would really urge that the concerned Cabinet Secretary and even other secretaries, which is their duty and responsibility, they should not sit on the responsibility given to them. Say for us, the work is going on, the vetting process is going on, and I believe those ones who will take over, whichever capacity, they should work extra hard, Honorable Speaker, so that we don't have issues of the same. And this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, as we were actually adopting the report and maybe the appointment of the Director General for Health, we learned that he acted for many years. Acting capacity for many years, which is very unfair in this country. I'm wondering, I sit in a committee of environment, forestry, and mining. And the director of Kithuri has been acting from the time I came here. When we introduce ourselves, then she says, acting. That thing tires me, and I've raised it severally. So, and Honorable Speaker, the CEOs who are acting in all these corporations, there is the HR manual that is always there. 6 months confirmation. If not confirmed, somebody else takes something else goes forth. But I don't know why people would always want to have maybe leaders acting or staff acting. And this one does not only apply to the CEOs. Other staff members should not act beyond the stipulated time, Honorable Speaker. This one will affect the work they are doing because nobody knows if they will be confirmed or not. And it can also be a cause or a reason why there is law. It can also be a reason why maybe some of them may not, may actually try to be corrupt in one way or another. So I really plead that the corporations, the institutions of this country should take their work seriously. Honorable Speaker, I also learned from his report that some institutions, the ones that have been mentioned, have insufficient staff. That is to say what?
Half a minute, just half a minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The understaffed institutions or corporations, we have so many Kenyans looking for employment or the opportunities. Those opportunities should be, or those institutions or those positions should be filled so that work can be done very fast and work can be completed within the stipulated time. Once more, I want to thank the committee, and I believe the implementation committee will take over from there. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kawanjiku, followed by the Honorable Kimiru.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this debate. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the PIC committee for a job well done. I think they have really done a very good job and thorough job in terms of making sure that they look into the reports tabled to them by the Auditor General. And I think if everybody is doing his role, the way the PIC committee, led by my friend Chairman, Mr. Wangwe, Kenya will be a better place. Because, I mean, everybody is doing his role and what they're supposed to do, especially in terms of making sure that we are hold to account the people who are responsible in terms of making sure that they move this country and in terms of making sure that they prudently spend the public funds as far as the PFM Act is concerned, Mr. Speaker. There are quite a number of issues raised, and especially on this report, I've seen my KMTC called Karuri KMTC, and I've seen that we have had that debate with the CEO of KMTC, and KMTC is doing an amazing work in terms of making sure that they equip our young people, the Gen Zs of our country and our constituency. We have been having that KMTC for a very long time. And Mr. Speaker, it's good to confirm that we are not able even to offer some courses because of the restraint in terms of classrooms, in terms of the space that we had. And through the Committee on Health, we were able to rob in the Committee of Budget to make sure that we expand that KMTC so that it can be able to accommodate many students and make sure that the students who come to school within Karuri KMTC, and we were able to rob it for funds, and we got about 70 million to expand the KMTC. And one of the issues before the contractor was contracted to start the expansion was the issue of the Title D. And I'm quite aware of what is happening within that KMTC, Mr. Wangwe. And I really support, I'm really doing my level best to make sure that the KMTC get hold of its own title, because within the location of where the KMTC is, and I think it's a majority of our public institutions, because those people who are doing the subdivision then, they were allocating a chunk of land to different institutions, public institutions. Some of them, there is also Karuri Level 4 Hospital, there is the DCI office, the security office, there is the NGCDF office within the same vicinity, there is also what we call the judiciary, and so it was one title. So it has become a very tedious process to make sure that we separate, that every institution can be able to hold its own title. And I'm promising, and I know on the report, and I've seen that they have already given out to people to make sure that they submit and make sure that we subdivide the land and make sure that the Karuri KMTC has its own title. We are at the tail end of the process, and I'm certain, the KMTC Karuri will have its own title deed, Mr. Speaker. So part of that is good to confirm that the kind of job that is being done by these institutions are a good job, but we must also call out other institutions, because I think there is a very big problem. Because even today we had a case in the committee that I chair. I chaired in the morning of Kenha and KWS and Southern Bypass. Some agreement that they made long time ago, Mr. Speaker, of about 2014. And they were supposed to recompensate KWS because of the land they were using public grants. So, and it becomes a bit tedious that even as we try to solve some of the problems that we have, that the people who are holders of this office are not willing to be reasonable, because those are two institutions take public institutions, they're taking each other to courts. You know, there is serious litigations process, there are money involved. And you wonder whether, because it's the same institution, it's a government institution, Kenya is a government institution, KWA is a government institution, but one, they had an agreement to that effect, but the moment after, you know, the road was constructed, Kenya decided not to pay the KWS the amount they had agreed they would be able to pay. So now they are looking for advisory opinions from the Attorney General, looking for the advisory from the Treasury, so that they can make the process tedious. And we were wondering, Mr. Speaker, these are same institutions taking other institutions to court. And I've seen what even the committee is recommending. They should try as much as they can to solve some of these matters out of court settlement, and they look for an arbitrator, or they look for an AG, Attorney General, or they sit down because there are two CEOs and their interest is public interest. No one should be able to carry forward his own personal interest as far as the public funds is concerned, Mr. Speaker. And therefore it is a serious concern, and I commend whatever the committee is proposing, that these litigations, you know, they will take us nowhere. And what happens is that once you take each other to court, you're not even able to implement whatever you wanted to implement as a committee or as an institution, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, the recommendations from the PIC, it is timely, so that they can be able to make sure we do away with these litigations and solve these matters, so that the country and the public fund can be prudently be used without even further delay, because some of this delay are causing the public to lose funds and to lose money, Mr. Speaker. Institutions, and I agree, like KUTRH, you know, you cannot continue saying that the value of that land, the value of that property, it is still where it was maybe 10 or 20 years ago. So it is prudent for us to make sure that more oftenly we keep every maybe 2 financial year or 1 financial year, we look for another valuer to evaluate and to value the said property, because the value of that property 5 years ago, totally, to speak true, Mr. Speaker, it is totally different with the current value, Mr. Speaker, because there are so many other issues that are raised during the valuation of any property, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, we must also make sure that the people who are holder of these offices, issues of appointing board, you know, you don't need rocket science, Mr. Speaker. It's a matter of, there are so many Kenyans who are looking, there are many Kenyans who are looking for these jobs, Mr. Speaker. It's a matter of appointing a board and make sure that this board is operational, so that some of the decisions that are being made, they can be made by the board before, you know, if the board is able to check whether there is any risk or anything, that the board can be able to decide the management of that institution, Mr. Speaker. But you realize, because of selfishness and personal interest, and people who want to take advantage of these institutions, they don't want the board to be in place so they can continue. There's many CSS, they don't want this board to be in places so they can be able to continue making decisions as far as those institutions are concerned. Because when the board is in place, they'll make sure that they look at the law and they are independent in terms of making sure that the management of the institution is of public good, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, we must call these CSS out, and we appreciate, because the vetting is ongoing. It's for them to know that, you know, power is transient. Today there will be a CS, tomorrow it will not be a CS. You know, we have learned a new lessons with these new political temperatures that, these politics that is happening within the country, Mr. Speaker. You know, you may be the cabinet secretary today, and then tomorrow things come. You know, the world is different, and you are no longer the CS or the PS of that institution. So do what you can at that particular time and be accountable at that particular time. Make prudent use of that opportunity that you have been given by Kenyans who to manage their public resources, because it is out of this place, Mr. Speaker. Let these CSS, and we hope that the CSS who are being appointed now, they have learned a lesson and they have been watching whatever is happening within the Republic, and they'll be able to make good judgment and make good decisions as far as these institutions are concerned, Mr. Speaker. So some of those issues raised by the committee, issues of appointing the board, issues of, you know, a procurement process. We have seen it, Mr. Speaker, and it is in the public domain that majority of the CEOs of these institutions, public officers, they would want to make procurement and award companies and contractors of people that probably will benefit them maybe later in the future, maybe how they are going to acquire those contracts. They'll have to, give something out as far as those contractors are concerned. We must make sure, and one thing that we have learned as a country, that the issue of accountability, it is an issue that we should not run away from as members of this House, Mr. Speaker. It is our sole responsibility to hold to account all officers who are in charge of our public funds, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, the recommendations of the committee are highly welcome, and we support the committee resolution, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Honorable Kimilu, followed by MP Fofunyula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me opportunity to contribute to this report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, once I want to thank our chair, Honorable Wangwe, leading the committee, whereby I serve as a member of this committee, and giving the report we have tabled today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the whole committee for the cooperation because, Mr. Speaker, we did thorough work, and due to the cooperation, we did the work now for the report we have tabled today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this report should serve as an example to even other cooperation and institutions, Mr. Speaker, we have in this country. Mr. Speaker, as I keep on saying sometimes, we do make good laws in this country, but implementation is the issue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on our report, Mr. Speaker, there are some of the issues we come across, like procurement issues, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a problem which is touching many institutions in this country. Mr. Speaker, because many organizations are doing procurement without following doing contrary to the Procurement Act, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, this is opening doors to corruption in this country, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, once this report is implemented in 3 months, I think some of these institutions will serve as an example, Mr. Speaker, to this country. Mr. Speaker, we also find some of loopholes in this institution, like when it goes to the declaring of interest, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate to see an organization for the 5 good years, they have not implemented, they have not declared their interest, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as members of Parliament, once you travel, immediately you land back to the country, you have to surrender, Mr. Speaker. But it was funny, Mr. Speaker, to get that institution for the last 5 good years. They have not even surrendered. This, Mr. Speaker, I will term it as a corruption of high level, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is the high time as a country we need to come together and make sure that we seal all these loopholes of corruption in our country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's another challenge, and this one, as a country, we have to look at it on the all different angles, Mr. Speaker, whereby you get a CEO of an institution has acted for more than 6 months, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, I think this is also a weakness, Mr. Speaker, and a loophole, Mr. Speaker, of the corruption, because if a CEO is working in an institution, acting for a year, Mr. Speaker, how do you expect that CEO to perform or to give a clean work, Mr. Speaker? And this becomes a problem in our country, Mr. Speaker, and it's something we recommended in our report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, corruption in the governance has become a challenge to this country, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, if a committee like our committee tables a report like this, Mr. Speaker, we request this report to be implemented within 3 months to make sure that it acts as an example, Mr. Speaker, to all other institutions, Mr. Speaker, because we don't want this corruption and poor governance to continue in our country, Mr. Speaker. We have good people with good papers. We have good Kenyans who can do good jobs in this institution, who can deliver and give a clean work in this institution, instead of keeping people in our institution doing a shoddy work, Mr. Speaker, to the country, giving bad results, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, other organizations I've said more than several years without a clear title deeds. And Mr. Speaker, this is one of the weaknesses we have found in this institution. You can get an institution, I've said, for more than 10 years without a clear title deed of institution. And it's a high time the government, when we are doing some of these projects, if a government can spend more than 100 million in a land whereby there is no clear title deed or good papers of that land, I think, Mr. Speaker, we can this is the time to term this as a corruption, Mr. Speaker, because we need to have clear and good papers. And I want to, this one goes to the Ministry of Lands, Mr. Speaker, because I think, if I remember, Mr. Speaker, the institution, one of the institutions, they were telling us I've been following for title deeds for more than 3 years, which, Mr. Speaker, I think should not be the case, because this is a government to government, and I don't see how an organization can follow title deed for more than 3 years, Mr. Speaker. And some of these, like TVETs we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate to see a title deed taking that long. And Mr. Speaker, we are putting our money, government money, in such a institution. It's not good, Mr. Speaker. Let the government, Mr. Speaker, follow the regulation and make sure that the law is followed for any institution. If the title deed, if there is issue of land, to make sure that they get the title deeds and issue the correct document, Mr. Speaker. Officers, Mr. Speaker, in this institution, it's unfortunate to get some officers who are not even giving the report. It's like they are not qualified, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know, Mr. Speaker, if we can say this is a corruption in some of these institutions, whereby in hiring some of these staffs, I think there is a lot of corruption and a big loophole, Mr. Speaker. That's why we are getting people who cannot even give a good documentation. And we get some problem with the institution, because if we request for the document, Mr. Speaker, we are not getting what we want, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is poor hiring of these staffs, Mr. Speaker. Let, Mr. Speaker, this report be implemented in 3 months, and I think this will help this country. And we want to say, the CEOs, let the CEO not take more than 3 months before they are confirmed, because there's no need of a CEO who is running a big institution acting for more than 3 months, Mr. Speaker. I think this brings a loophole, and it is also causing some of the problems and the issues with this organization, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee for the good job they did. Mr. Speaker, me being part of the committee, and I support the report. And Mr. Speaker, I think this is the way to go for when the report is tabled in the Parliament. We want to see that report being implemented immediately so that we can see the reports of corruption in the country. I support, Mr. Speaker.
MP for Wajir West, followed by Madam Beatrice Elachi. Oh, I had given MP Oudo. Undo, proceed, Honorable Dr. Undo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute or support the second report of the Public Investment Committee on Social Services, Administration and Agriculture on the consideration of the Auditor General report on the financial statement of state corporations. Honorable Speaker, looking at the report, it would seem the state departments is Kenya Medical Research Institute, Kenya Medical Training Institute, Kenya Medical Laboratory Technician Technologists Board, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, and Kenya University Teaching Referral and Research Hospital. Honorable Speaker, let me also allow me to commend the committee of PIC for having the courage and the energy to bring the report to almost a review of the audited accounts to almost as close as possible to the current financial year. Honorable Speaker, as you remember, In the past parliament, we only used to have one PIC, and consequently, we used to have a backlog of reports that had not been examined and tabled in this House. That indeed, on its own, Honorable Speaker, was being unfair and in a way was not in compliance with Article 95 of the Constitution that mandates this House, this National Assembly, to oversight various government agencies that receive funds from government coffers. Honorable Speaker, as others have said before, Honorable Speaker, many times in this country, we do not have shortages of reports. We have scarcity, so to speak, of implementing the findings of these reports. And the structure of the Constitution and our reporting structure and the structure of Parliament is that once the various committees have presented a report on this floor and they have been adopted, they are then transmitted to the Committee of Implementation that is expected, Honorable Speaker, to implement and to follow up implementation. We don't seem to have received made so much progress, and I would suggest the Parliamentary Service Commission to move with speed and provide adequate capacity and adequate resources to the Committee of Implementation so that we are in a position to ensure that we implement or we bring to account all those who have been adversely mentioned in various audit reports and any other reports. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, it will be an exercise in futility for us for the committees to do this wonderful and thorough analysis of the reports of the Auditor General, come and present the report here, members of Parliament or members of the National Assembly, highlight all these issues, and then that's the end of the story. It therefore means many of the state officers and many of the accounting officers will never take Parliament serious because they will know all they can do is simply talk, and that's the end of the story. Honorable Speaker, I have seen various observations and recommendations from the committee. And one of the standout recommendations, Honorable Speaker, or finding, was lack of ownership documents on land and building. Honorable Speaker, this has been a cross-cutting issue amongst many of the government entities. We do not understand where the problem lies because we have the Department of Survey, we have the land registries, we have literally in all districts, so to speak, land registration areas, we have all the relevant skills that are required. They are not engaged all the time. Why the survey cannot be undertaken, why evaluation cannot be undertaken, why titles cannot be processed is something many of us cannot understand, Honorable Speaker. And I say so because I'm a professional in that area, in that field, and I know it is doable with very little expenses. Honorable Speaker, this is government land. This is government to government. So some of the charges, some of the levies, some of the money that has to be paid to process some of these things, Honorable Speaker, since they talk about one government, why can't they sit together and agree to waive off some of these expenses so that we are able, so that these entities can get ownership titles, ownership documents that is an unalienable proof of ownership. Honorable Speaker, I have had a discussion with quite my friends and colleagues who sit in the National Land Commission, noting the challenges and the bureaucracy in the mainstream lands office. There has been a thinking, and that we might have to come here, once we contextualize, we might have to come here and amend the Land Act, that instead of going through the rigorous process of survey and the rest to get the physical title documents, why can't we do vesting? So that a simple declaration in the Kenya Gazette that the land bounded by these coordinates is land belonging to a public entity. so that now that land can never be alienated to any other entity. That land cannot be used for any other purposes. And then, Honorable Speaker, that declaration should therefore be a sufficient evidence of ownership of that title and can be used as lien, be it in a bank, be it for any other purposes, can actually be used as proof and can be entered into the books of account of the entity in their incomes, or in the asset register. That, Honorable Speaker, will solve many, many of these issues. On the issue of land valuation, again, Honorable Speaker, I know the State Department for Lands have complained in the past they don't have adequate valuers. But I note that in the last 1 or so years, they have employed adequate number of valuers. It's therefore important that those who have been employed must move with speed and ensure that they value the properties. If you look at the report, Honorable Speaker, under paragraph 15, for example, Kenya Medical Training College did not value and disclose the value for various parcels of land occupied by 45 of its campuses. Technically speaking, Honorable Speaker, they have not complied with the provisions of the public entities, accounting board, whatever it is. So they say their books of account are incomplete and misleading, and this is contrary to the provision of the Audit Act as well as PFM Act. Honorable Speaker, delays in availing documents to the Auditor General. And I want to give the chair of the committee what we have been doing in Public Accounts Committee since the commencement of this term of Parliament. Audit is a process that must come to an end. Audit is not an ambush. Audit is not a simple one-day event. Honorable Speaker, any public entity that does not provide audits, does not provide the auditor the documents are requested for, they have committed an offense under Section 62 of the Public Audit Act. Honorable Speaker, I'm afraid in the recommendations provided here by the committee, and with due respect to my colleague and friend, I think he has played safe. Because all he has done, accounting officers should comply with this provision of Section 68 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012 by submitting all the required information for audit purposes. That within 2 months adoption of this report, any accounting officer who fails to provide required information for audit pursuant to Section 6.2 of the Audit Act should be prosecuted for offense pursuant to Section 6.2. Honorable Speaker, and I can see the chair is absorbing very, very intently. Honorable Speaker, actually the recommendation, I wish I could have time, was to amend the recommendation that any officer who was obliged to provide the document and did not provide the document at the time of audit should be prosecuted immediately as provided for under Section 62(2). And we must be courageous enough, Honorable Speaker, to name them in person because they are not faceless. They are known. The records are there. We must name them so that in future they are barred from holding any of public offices until they are able, so that we'll send a lesson, a very tough lesson to accounting officers. Honorable Speaker, I know my time is up. I just wish to support, but we must be bold enough. We must be strong enough, call out those who fail to comply with the law. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member of Parliament for Wajir West, followed by
Thank
the
you,
Honorable
Mr. Speaker, for
Elijah
giving me this
Richards.
opportunity to support this report by the Public Investment Committee. I want from the onset to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Public Investment Committee have done thorough investigative report. they have clearly shown that we have a lot of problem within the state corporations in this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am privileged also to sit in the Public Accounts Committee of Commercial and Energy, Mr. Speaker. But however, it seems, Mr. Speaker, that whatever is being said in this report is exactly what is happening in each and every state department in this country, Mr. Speaker. We are facing similar challenges in each and every state corporations, be it ownership, land ownership, be it delays of appointment of boards, be it irregular procurement process. All it is like we are duplicating the same problem in every department, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to echo the honorable member here that this House is not taken seriously by these state corporations because the reports that are tabled here are not implemented, Mr. Speaker. The problem is we have no teeth to implement these reports, Mr. Speaker. The reports are brought, they are tabled, discussed, passed, but unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, it dies off. So anybody within that department or state corporation knows, however, whatever is written by any committee or taken to this parliament will not be implemented. Therefore, the trend continues year in, year out, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's my hope and prayer. One day, one time, the parliament will devise a mechanism to implement its own report so that anybody who violates the law should be brought to book, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, coming back to this report, I want from the onset support the report, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the key recommendations by the committee is delays in appointment of board of directors, Mr. Speaker. Board of directors in each institution has their own mandate and rules, Mr. Speaker. And if they are not appointed, Mr. Speaker, that institution can make decisions that will eventually lead to misappropriation of resources and maybe violating the law, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they have also recommended or highlighted irregular procurement process. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we blame CEOs, we blame accounting officers for doing irregular procurement process. But I believe this House has also a mandate, according to me, to also aid the CEOs to do irregular procurement process. Why do I say so, Mr. Speaker? I say so because we pass budget not based on project, but based on the whims, directions, and instructions of the executive, Mr. Speaker. Let's come to the budget that was tabled just recently, Mr. Speaker. The budget, we have a lot of projects, Mr. Speaker, which are already ongoing now. But what did the executive did? They have completely removed all the budget from all the ongoing projects, Mr. Speaker, and allocated money in some other very funny expenditures, Mr. Speaker. I'm in Agriculture Committee, Mr. Speaker, Agriculture and Livestock Committee. You will find out that, Mr. Speaker, the whole budget of livestock and agriculture, crops and development, crops department, is zero, completely zero. But you will see something like CTU. It's something that is not really necessary. It's been allocated billions of shillings. And when the committee and even the department proposes to remove the money and allocate to a very serious project, then the budget committee comes back, again, redo the whole budget and return the money to the ICTU, Mr. Speaker. That is clearly misplaced priority, Mr. Speaker. So when a CEO comes in front of a committee, gives his budget priorities, the committee of this parliament does otherwise because they have been instructed from somewhere else to do something, then the project is stalled, and it becomes a white elephant project. Then the CEO is blamed for a fault that is not his, because he brought the budget, but it was not allocated. Mr. Speaker, sometimes this House must take decisions based on the facts that are on the ground, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that does not mean the CEOs and the accounting officers should not take their work seriously. They should follow the PFM Act. It is very clear on the procurement process, Mr. Speaker. But sometimes we must also be considerate. We must give them the tools to work, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have seen something, I have seen also, the committee recommended Section 7, subsection 2 of the National Cohesion and Integration Act, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very clear in this country. There is a disparity in terms of employment in this country, Mr. Speaker. Some few, Mr. Speaker, ethnic communities are privileged to be employed in each and every department, state corporations of this country, Mr. Speaker. You will find some families, some regions, which even can translate less than 1% of the employment of this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the recommendation given by this committee is very, very, very useful. If implemented, it will cure the problems this country is facing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the committee, they have recommended that the Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity should initiate amendment to the National Cohesion and Integration Act 2008 to provide a legal framework to address the challenges on the implementation of Section 7, subsection 2, Mr. Speaker, of the National Cohesion and Integration Act 2008, to come up with a realistic formula to cure this problem, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you will find you go to a state corporation.
You're on a point of honorable language, on a point of information. Would you entertain that information?
Okay.
Yeah. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, whereas my good friend and neighbor here is discussing the issue of cohesion, what he should also be emphasizing on is that the chair of National Cohesion and Integration, the CEO of of the same commission, they appear also to have a problem with the ethnicity of where they come from. Therefore, it becomes very conflicting when it comes to implementation of what the honorable member is trying to contribute. So, as he contributes, let him also note that confusion and confliction is from the same commission that is helping us in terms of National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You mean that the commission itself is not fully integrated?
Means.
Proceed, Honorable.
Then, if that is the case, Mr. Speaker, we have a problem. And we must start with the commission itself.
I wish, as a member of parliament for Dadaab, I would be allowed to go and contribute on the same. But proceed now from the chair.
Therefore, Mr. Speaker, because my time was taken by the honorable member, I want you to at least add me 1 minute or more.
You can have 1 more minute, yes. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the issue of land ownership is a problem in this country. Now, the committee have recommended, they have clearly stipulated that Kenyatta University Hospital, which worth more than 5 billion Kenyan shillings, is built in a land that it is on is not known. Mr. Speaker, that one can clearly tell you how this country's resources are not taken care of. Mr. Speaker, if somebody today, God forbid, comes with a genuine title deed for the same property, then that institution itself, the whole hospital that we are talking about today as one of the best hospitals in this country that is doing thorough research on serious diseases, will be taken off by a private investor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is not the only institution that sits on unknown land. This is Mr. Speaker, the issue of land ownership in this country and the government land is a contentious issue. Each and every department have a contention. They have legal issues with either private sectors or even within the institution, within the government sector, Mr. Speaker. It is the high time for the institution and for the government to wake up and at least issue title deeds to all the institutions that have no title deeds in this country, Mr. Speaker. That is the only way to cure this disease, and there is no shortcut, Mr. Speaker, unless somebody somewhere is interested to grab the same land and is preventing them not to get a title deed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, lastly, on the issue of Kithuri, Mr. Speaker, we all know that interest, when you take an interest.
Order, the Honorable MP for Wajir West, you have run out of time. The Honorable Elachi Beatrice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise to support the report of the Public Investment Committee on Social Services, Administration, and Agriculture, and to thank the Chair for just elaborating very clear on the many issues that we face, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, we also need to ask ourselves as a House that now we are doing the reports of 2015, 2014, 15, 16, and 17. Mr. Speaker, even if we say what, we imagine we are now in a transition as much as government is perpetual, but you might find even the officers who did all this are no longer there. But then we must put a caveat and say, yes, we normally say that the buck stops with whoever takes over as an institution. But Mr. Speaker, we must start asking ourselves, even as a parliament, how do we now change this? Based on what we are going through, based on what we are saying, good governance, how do we change this to make it more better that reports of corporations and other institutions that we know after every 3 years, the board is, time has lapsed, you must have new board members coming in. How do we work around to clean all these challenges that we are facing? And Mr. Speaker, one thing we must agree today when we are looking at this report is that this is a report of the different institutions that work more in the medical health. We know that KU has its own issues of land, but remember, the land of KU, Mr. Speaker, came from the same college. How do we now bring in good governance that if an institution would wish to build another institution of government within themselves, do we start with gazetting the way the professor has said? We just do a gazette notice to notify that that land now is still part of KU, yes, but it is now going under the medical department. So that we don't just make title deeds. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, doing title deeds of government, and yet the land is for government. That is one thing we must really think, how do we bring a good law that can reorganize this? That land owned by government must serve all offices that are needed, especially if you go somewhere where we don't have land, like in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. So imagine if we have land that you need to put in a DCC, you need to put in the TSC, you need to put in even a court, because in Nairobi we don't have. What happens? Shall we now subdivide this? We just need to also put in and say, as much as that, that land, if indeed can serve all, because you are serving Kenyans. And Kenyans, we must come out of this issue of thinking when I've been given an office, it is my personal property. It is not. You're in that office in the privilege to serve Kenyans, and therefore anytime you can be removed and another person comes in to serve. So if we get that in ourselves and start having that culture of appreciating that when I'm a CEO or a director or a chair, I'm under the privilege of Kenyans to serve them in the period that I've been given, and therefore it does not turn around to be my property, to start fighting that each government. And then the other thing we must do for this House, Mr. Speaker, is to put in a law that government to government cannot take themselves to court for purposes of land. For example, now the issue we have of the Southern Bypass, Mr. Speaker, with the issue of KWS. The purpose of the land was to serve Kenyans. Yes, it was for KWS, but it did not go to a private partner. It went back to government to serve the same KWS as they drive on, as they go to work, and to serve other Kenyans. How do we deal with that? So it is very unfortunate that this is something even cabinet can come up with an agreement and just say it was land that was given for roads, and therefore we as cabinet have decided that land is for the roads, and we end that matter than taking ourselves in court as government to government. The other issue that the report brings out now is this issue of remuneration of the senior officers. Mr. Speaker, why can't they just follow what Parliament does? You can never be given two imprests. If you have not spent, you have to refund. And so it is very simple. The law must just be clear to every department of government that if you're an officer and you were given money that was not your money, that was beyond, then you just refund. We don't even need. But one thing we must also try and bring the exchequer to agree, which is also a challenge in CDF, is that, Mr. Speaker, this issue of releasing resources from the exchequer. Every audit report in Kenya, even your own CDF, you will have that question. Yet it is not your mistake. It is not mistake of the fund manager, of the board. The mistake is just simple. The money was never released in time from the exchequer, and therefore you'll find a challenge when you now start doing your audits. So we have to be very clear, and we need to remove it, and we need to call the Auditor General and say, if it is money that was never released from the exchequer, let the audit report not question, but just say, money is not released in time, so that we also come out of these reports of the auditor. Some of them, when you look at the issues, you wonder, this is maybe just an issue that would have been done before the report is unveiled, and it is an issue that is not an issue. Because in the next slide, you find, Mr. Speaker, they are saying, oh, when the money came down, you did the 1, 2, 3, the things you were supposed to do. So that is one thing that is very clear. So even as I finalize, because I know of time, Mr. Speaker, I think what we are saying is that we are changing now. We must change. We must start where you used to come on media and tell us what we must do as a country. That is where we must go back. That is where we must respect the rule of law. That is where me and I and everyone must reflect and ask themselves, how do I normally manage? And as I finish, I just want to plead with KU, the CEO, the board. They need to work together. That conflict that they are having is not going to help. We wish, Madam Mugendi, when she was doing this, she did it for the purpose of helping the institution and Kenyans. You've come in, you find everything, run the institution and respect each other, but run without having conflict. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Honorable MP for the Greater South, Honorable John Oweri is not here. The Honorable Quenya. Okay, the Honorable Quenya, please proceed. Quenya Duku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Sorry, I didn't carry my card. Maybe that's why my name is not reflecting. But I happen to be one person who is so passionate about reports that emanates from PIC, because last time when I was a fresher, Mr. Speaker, I landed in one PIC committee when it used to be just one before it was split. And Mr. Speaker, from my look of things, I think nothing much has changed. The only thing that has changed is that workload has been spread. But in terms of mandate,
what's wrong with the?
Oh, thank you. The mic is back. In terms of, I was thinking, in terms of mandate, nothing has changed, Mr. Speaker. And I thought at one point that we need as a house to rethink our strategy, because we may not be as effective as the Constitution envisages in terms of our oversight role, Mr. Speaker, and especially because we only rely with reports coming from the Auditor General's office. And Mr. Speaker, times Parliament is over. These reports pile up to the extent that now we're looking back into close to 10 years back, and looking at matters that happened 10 years back. Of course, then it means even if it were to take action, as the speaker who's just spoken has said, it will be very difficult to really dig back, because some of the people maybe may have committed atrocities have either deceased, they have ceased to live, or maybe something just happened to them. The role of this committee, majorly, is that of postmortem. We act as morticians in this house, and I think it's about time that we rethought about how to go about these audit reports, so that then, within the life of that audit year, we are able to take action and maybe give recommendations that can take us forward. Moving forward, Mr. Speaker, I am happy with the reports that are coming from this committee, led by our very able chairman, and the Honorable Wangwe, who has been even a whip in this house, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of KMTC, I have had a keen look at it, because I have one that is among the 66 that have been mentioned, is a satellite campus. And Mr. Speaker, the fact that we are able to see through, especially in terms of quality of training, that tells you that these members really did some very good job. They were able to see the ratio of lecturers to students. The number of students in our KMTCs, as per the records here, is about 34,918. The number of lecturers that we have is just about 542. So in terms of ratio, you can see, for every 65 students, they have one lecturer. The recommended international standards, it is one lecturer to take on 10 students only. So really, as much as we may be talking about so many colleges that we have, are we really getting value in terms of training? The investment that many parents are putting to their children, by the time they are graduating, are they graduating with value or having qualified, or they're half-baked? Because I do not understand how it is that one lecturer is able to really take care of 65 students who are doing some medical-related courses. I think this is something that we need to address urgently, and just like we are deploying teachers and employing teachers, the Ministry of Health must, with speed, employ lecturers to assist our students who are in KMTCs. Mr. Speaker, they have also recommended, KMTC is recommending or is saying that to mitigate that challenge, they have moved to technology of e-learning, so that then a lecturer who is in KMTC Nairobi campus may be taking like 1,000 students across the country in KMTCs that are spread, teaching a certain subject, but still there's no interaction between, because e-learning is good, but now that interaction between student and the lecturer is not there. And I think it's something that we also need to think of. And actually, they have also said that county governments are collaborating with KMTCs. But we would want to see to what extent is that collaboration, because that is just a wish that KMTC is making, that we would wish to collaborate with county governments. But in terms of capacity, what capacity are they giving these KMTCs? Because this is a national institution, these are national institutions. Yet we know that county governments only deal with devolved functions. The issue of training and standards is domiciled in the Ministry of Health, in the national government. And therefore, we would wish to see what kind of a collaboration it is that these people envisage that they're going to collaborate with the county government. Mr. Speaker, going forward again, there's the issue of KUTRH, Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital. I happened to also have sat in Health Committee last Parliament, Mr. Speaker, when this hospital was incepted, when it was constructed, and therefore I was able to go through the figures because that is the area of my interest. And Mr. Speaker, it is one of the hospitals or facilities that I would say that in this country where we had value for money. It was built by a loan from Chinese, but actually they're the people who did the work. And the only amount of money that was spent to build that state-of-the-art hospital is 8 billion Kenya shillings, as at that time. We took a whole 2 years to commission that hospital. Do you know why? Because we did not have 600 million only to operationalize that hospital. And through the leadership of our chair there then, and I'm happy that she's in the house, we were able to operationalize that hospital, and today is up and running. But Mr. Speaker, you know, not all that glitters is that is gold. Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, being the hospital that was then, we are hearing that the traders there, the people who trade with the hospital in terms of the service providers, they are owed billions of money in terms of paying bills. And this is an issue that we must address. As much as our Treasury is saying that we are moving from the cash accounting system to accrual accounting system, we need to relook into things. And especially the A&A, the appropriation in aid, the monies that they collect, the hospital must be given the mandate to spend that money without surrendering the same to National Treasury. Because once that money comes to the National Treasury will disburse or give the authority for the monies to be spent at their convenience. Yet, we want to hear that our topmost hospital is up and running and without paying bills. This issue of paying bills is becoming a monster. Today, the government is owed close to 700 billion. We have no method of how that is going to be paid. And actually, it is not part of what we say is our public debt. Because in the definition of public debt,